Hello, and welcome to Noctipas. Here, stories come alive when the world goes quiet. Prepare to drift through calm, curious tales. Sometimes strange, sometimes comforting, but always with a touch of mystery. Leave the weight of the day behind. Take a deep breath. And join me on another journey through the shadows of imagination. Enjoy the story and sweet dreams. Story 1. I helped a woman pick out a dress set and tailor months later. She found me again. A few months back, I was waiting outside the fitting rooms at and tailor while my daughter tried on clothes. A woman stepped out, clearly discouraged. She had tried on a ton of things and still hadn't found anything for what she said was her husband's company Christmas party. She glanced at me, lanyard around my neck, pin behind my ear, rookie mistake, and asked, "Can you help me find something that actually works?" I didn't have the heart to tell her I didn't work there. So I just smiled and said, "Let's do it." We spent about 20 minutes picking through racks. She was kind, funny, and I could tell she really wanted to feel good in her own skin again. Eventually, we found a dress that lit her up. She looked absolutely radiant. As she beamed at herself in the mirror, she asked me, "How long have you worked here?" I laughed and told her the truth. "Oh, I don't work here, I'm just waiting on my daughter." We both cracked up. She gave me the biggest hug and said it was the most fun she did shopping in ages. I figured that was the end of it. Until last week. I was grabbing coffee at a local bakery when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was her. She recognized me right away and said, "You helped me find that dress. I've been hoping to run into you again. I wanted to say thank you properly." We sat down for coffee and ended up talking for nearly an hour. Turns out she wore the dress, felt amazing, had the best night in a long time, and it sparked her to start putting herself out there again in all sorts of ways. She's now volunteering at a local women's group and just glowing with confidence. Funny how a small moment between strangers can ripple in ways you never expect. I'm so glad our paths crossed again. Some people really do stay with you. Story 2. My boss said I had to work late, so I forwarded his emails to HR. If you only read the title, I might seem like a petty employee. But trust me, this was long overdue. I've worked at my company for 2 years. My boss, Mike, had a habit of dumping extra work on me at the last minute. Always after hours. Always urgent. At first, I thought it was normal, but then I noticed a pattern. My coworkers never got these late-night emails. Just me. One night, he told me I had to stay late to finish a report he conveniently forgot to assign earlier. I had plans. I pushed back. He got weirdly aggressive, hinting that my dedication would affect my future here. That's when I started digging. I searched my inbox and found months of these urgent emails. Most weren't even necessary. Some even contradicted deadlines he had given others. Then I remembered something. HR had mentioned during onboarding that all emails were backed up on the company server. So, I did what any overworked employee would do. I forwarded everything to HR with a polite inquiry. "Hey, I just wanted some clarification. I seem to be receiving significantly more after-hours requests than my peers. Is this standard practice?" I didn't hear anything for a week. Then, out of nowhere, Mike called me into his office. He looked pale. HR had flagged the pattern, compared workloads, and found a lot more than just unfair treatment. Turns out, Mike had been diverting work from his own responsibilities onto me while claiming credit for my results. A week later, an all-company email announced that Mike was moving on to new opportunities. I left at 5 p.m. sharp that day. Story 3. My father just called me to wish me Merry Christmas. I've been homeless for 3 months. Just need to vent. As title says, I've been homeless for 3 months. My father lives about an hour away from the library, park, Taco Bell/Dunkin' Donuts where I spend time. He lives with his wife. They have a 2-floor house. His wife's son and his wife live on the 2nd floor. They have a fully finished basement. When I was about to become homeless, I asked to stay there for a few months so I could get back on my feet. Answer was absolutely not. What kind of sadistic freaking behavior is this? 2 days ago, it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit outside. He hasn't responded to my phone calls for 2 months or so, but calls me to wish me Merry Christmas? Thanks for reading. I guess Merry Christmas to you all. Story 4. I accidentally eavesdropped on a first date that felt like watching a dreamer trying to spark life into a brick wall. I was at a restaurant just outside Boston Mid-Range, nothing fancy, but nice enough for a date. I was early. My friend, running late. So I had about 20 minutes of solo time at my table. Next to me, in the same booth, but technically a separate table, sat a young couple who looked to be in their mid-20s. They arrived a minute after I did. Across from me, and to my left, sat a man, heavy-set, pale, with a bright red beard and the posture of someone either very tired or permanently unimpressed. Across from him, beside me, sat a young woman with expressive eyes, neat makeup, and a polite energy that I could feel even from my seat. It was clearly a first date. She smiled. He grunted. She talked. He sipped a whiskey cocktail. She ordered a wine, asked for it to come with her meal, but they brought it early. She laughed and thanked the server anyway. And then the conversation started. At first, it was small talk, the kind where one person tries to make it work and the other seems to be calculating how long is polite before leaving. I started jotting things down, not with judgment, but curiosity. I do this sometimes when alone in public, like sketching, but with words. A habit from long subway rides and solo lunches. She admitted this was her first app date. He said he'd been on a lot. Silence. She asked him if he wanted to know anything about her. He responded, sure. Like what? She tried again, asked about plumbing. He said he was a journeyman, but that there's no difference, really. She tried to relate. I went to school for 4 years for my job. I always admired people who just dove into work. He said he had a degree in communications. She blinked. Oh, that's cool. Surprising, but cool. He said nothing. She confessed she gets nervous on dates and talks too much. Invited him to jump in. He told her, you're fine. She asked if he'd always lived nearby. He said, whole life. She launched into a story she grew up on a houseboat. Her parents studied whales. Like George on Seinfeld, but real. She smiled, looking for a connection. He asked if you can eat whales. She paused. No. She asked if he was okay. Offered to reschedule if it wasn't a good night. He said, you're fine. She laughed nervously, tried to bridge again. I actually studied physics. Minored in music so I wouldn't forget piano. Took a year to just play, never looked back. He cut in. What kind of money you make doing that? She blinked. Sorry. He repeated the question. She dodged politely. It varies. He nodded. That's what I figured. She asked about Netflix. He studied the menu. She asked if anything looked good. He said, not really. Might just ask for a regular burger. She apologized, said she should have checked if he liked seafood. He said, I do. It's just overpriced. She replied, oh, I wasn't expecting you to pay. He grinned. So you're paying? Cool. Maybe I'll get something else. She laughed, waiting for him to laugh back. He didn't. Oh, you were joking, right? He stared. What joke? She quietly decided to stick with the wine. He blamed the slow service. She asked about interests. He said, sports. She lit up. Oh, what do you play? He said he used to play in high school. Could have gone pro if I wanted. She asked, what else? She offered a fun one. Desert island book choice? He frowned. Never been to the desert. I don't really travel. She paused, then said, you know, I'm actually feeling off. I think I might have to call it a night. He shrugged. Okay. She stood. I'll go settle this at the bar. He nodded. Okay. She looked down, hesitant, then said, well, have a good night. He waved her off. Yeah, you too. This was chill. I'll text you. She walked out. He stayed, ordered his burger, ate the whole thing. I watched this quiet unraveling of a one-sided effort, a hopeful human trying to connect with a brick wall of indifference, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because it was tragic or explosive, but because of how common it felt. It's like people aren't just bad at dating these days, they're bad at showing up. Like someone handed them a life, and they're just dragging it around, not even curious about the person across the table. Of course, not everyone is like this, but I'm seeing it more especially among young men. They seem so unbothered, unmotivated, and disinterested in the people they're with, like they're just fulfilling a social quota. Maybe it's burnout, maybe loneliness, or maybe some people are just not meant to date. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. I just needed to get this one out of my head. Story 5. My fiancée told me she was going on a girls' trip. so I had her plane ticket redirected. If you only read the title, I might sound like a controlling jerk. But I promise you, I'm not. I've been with my fiancée, Rachel, for 3 years. We got engaged 6 months ago, and everything seemed perfect until I started noticing little things. Sudden late-night meetings, a new password on her phone, and the biggest red flag, a girl's trip she was oddly secretive about. I wasn't the jealous type, but something didn't sit right. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked our shared airline account. Turns out, her girl's trip was actually a solo ticket to a tropical resort, booked under her name and another man's. I recognized his name, a friend from work. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I got to planning. I quietly canceled her ticket and rebooked it to her parents' house. Same departure time, just a very different destination. I also compiled all the evidence, screenshots, text I found on her old tablet, and even a few Venmo transactions that made things obvious. The day of the trip arrived. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and watched as she confidently walked inside. I had one of my friends tell her to see the moment she realized she wasn't heading to paradise with her affair partner. Her first call came 20 minutes later. I ignored it. The frantic text followed. Rachel, why is my ticket wrong? Rachel, where are my bags? Rachel, did you do this? I didn't reply. Instead, I group texted her, her parents, and her older brother with a simple message. Hey, Rachel's on her way to see you. She has something important to explain. Check your emails for the full story. Hope she has a great stay. Then, I blocked her number. I don't know how things went when she landed, but judging by the 100 missed calls from her and a few from her mom, I'd say it wasn't pretty. Meanwhile, I changed the locks, packed up her things, and had them delivered to her parents' place. I spent that weekend with my best friends, having the celebratory drinks I didn't know I needed. So yeah, Rachel did go on a trip, just not the one she planned. Story 6. I found a hidden room in my apartment, and my landlord had no idea it existed. I moved into my current apartment about 6 months ago. It's an old building in a city where quirky basically means falling apart but with character. The rent was cheap, the location was good, and the place had these weird, old-school building closets and thick walls. About a month ago, I was rearranging my bedroom and decided to finally deal with this awkward, nailed-shut panel in the back of my closet. Curiosity got the better of me, so my boyfriend grabbed a hammer and pried it open. Behind it wall another wall, but the wall sounded hollow. I tapped around and found a loose section. After some serious effort and a lot of dust, my boyfriend managed to break through. Behind the wall was a tiny, windowless room, maybe the size of a large walk-in closet. It was empty except for an old wooden chair and a stack of yellowed newspapers from the 1970s. I freaked out a little, but eventually called my landlord to ask about it. He was just as surprised as I was. He'd owned the building for like 20 years and had no idea there was a hidden room. He came over, checked it out, and we both just stood there, weirded out but also kind of fascinated. I ended up cleaning out the space and turning it into a reading nook. However, I still wonder who built the room and why they sealed it up. Story 7. Guy's card declined before the storm. I couldn't let his kid leave empty-handed. Publix was packed today, everyone panic buying for the hurricane. I'm in line with my wife when I notice a dad and his daughter at the register. His card wasn't going through. He kept checking his phone like maybe the money would magically appear. You could see he was embarrassed. His daughter was just quietly watching it all. Eventually, the cashier calls the manager, they void the transaction, and the two of them start walking out. No groceries, just that heavy kind of silence. I couldn't watch that. Told my wife, I gotta do something, and slipped out of line. I asked the manager, was it a payment issue? I'll take care of it. She nodded. I caught the guy right before he hit the door. Hey man, come back in. Let me get that for you. He looked stunned, like I'd offered him $1 million and a nap. They'd already started putting his groceries back, so I asked the staff to hold off and swiped my card. $63 and some change. Totally worth it. He tried to pay me back with a few bucks. I said no. He hugged me. A real, tight, grateful hug. His daughter gave me a shy smile like I just handed her a puppy. My wife? Crying in the parking lot. We talk about being decent people. That was my shot. I'm glad I took it. Be that person when the moment comes. Someone might just need their faith in people restored. Story 8. I, 29 quit my job after my boss took credit for my project. Now they're begging me to come back. A few weeks ago, I shared how my boss completely stole credit for a major project I had spent months working on. I didn't say anything at first, but when he presented my work to upper management as his own without even acknowledging my contributions, I was furious. I decided right then that I was done. I started quietly looking for new opportunities, and within 2 weeks, I had an offer, better pay, better title, and fully remote. I turned in my resignation, and let's just say, my boss did not take it well. First, he acted indifferent, like he didn't care. Then, 2 days before my last day, HR and upper management suddenly wanted to discuss my future at the company. I politely declined. That's when the real desperation kicked in. My boss, the same guy who had stolen my work, personally pulled me aside and tried to convince me to stay. He claimed I was an invaluable member of the team and that he always saw leadership potential in me. I asked him why, if that was the case, he had taken full credit for my project. He had no real answer, just mumbled something about teamwork. I left on good terms with my colleagues, but I made sure to let upper management know why I was leaving. Now, a week into my new job, I got an email from HR at my old company saying they'd be open to negotiating a counteroffer if I reconsidered. Absolutely not. I love my new job, my manager actually respects me, and I get to work in my pajamas. No regrets. For anyone stuck in a toxic work environment, know your worth. Story 9. My kids knew about my wife's affair and helped her cover it up. Last week while my wife, 49F, was taking a shower, I, 50M, saw a notification pop up on her phone and went to open it thinking it was one of our daughters, Maddie 24F and Alice 26F, confirming what time their girls' dinner was. Instead, I saw an unsaved number saying, "I can't wait to see you," and then kissing emoji. I froze for a second. I clicked on the message and saw a short thread mostly confirming dinner plans for that evening and how they missed each other and once a week just wasn't enough. I knew what I saw. 29 years of marriage down the drain. Hoping to catch her in a lie before she left the house, I texted both our daughters and asked them about girls' dinner. What happened next broke me to my core. Both girls confirmed the dinner and said they were excited. I couldn't believe it. Not proud of what came next. I turned her location sharing on with me in her phone and let her leave. I followed her to a restaurant and lo and behold, neither daughter was there, but instead a man I knew was her boss. I was so heartbroken. Part of me was hoping I was just a paranoid freak and my daughters would be there happy to see me. But no, just my cheating wife and her AP. I took pictures of the two of them holding hands and kissing. I know I should have waited, but I couldn't help myself. I was so angry. As soon as I got in my car, I opened the group chat we had as a family, sent them all the photos and said, "Glad you're enjoying girls' dinner together." I then turned my phone off and drove to my brother's house and asked to stay the night. I woke up the next morning to over 40 texts and 20 voicemails. My wife went through the cheater's playbook of excuses. I didn't even listen to her voicemails. I was about to respond with, "I will be getting a divorce. I recommend a lawyer." But my brother stopped me. He told me to meet with a bunch of lawyers first and make sure she couldn't use them. Instead, I just sent the group chat a simple message. "I am physically fine, but need time. I will come home when I'm ready." I then muted my phone. I called different lawyers that looked to be the best in town that morning for appointments. Met with all of them and picked the one who looked ready to treat this as scorched earth as possible. Finally, after spending all day with lawyers, I looked through the messages and both my daughters were apologizing. My younger daughter, the daddy's girl of the two, was manic. She had texted me almost 50 times saying she never should have lied and hated it every time. Her boyfriend even reached out asking me to please reach out to her, that he didn't know what was going on but that she was on the verge of a panic attack. "Maddie, I love you, but please understand that what you've done has hurt me deeply. I need you to give me space." I sent it and within seconds got a, "Okay, I'm so sorry. I never should have helped. I'll never forgive myself. I love you too." I didn't respond. Alice was different. We always had a good relationship, but she was a mama's girl through and through. She said she was sorry, but that I shouldn't throw away a good marriage because of one mistake. This made me furious. Alice, this isn't a mistake. This is a betrayal. From my whole family. Please don't reach out again until I make first contact. She never responded, but I know she showed it to me SBX because she started saying that I shouldn't take this out on Alice. I never responded. I'll never talk to her again except through lawyers. This all happened 5 days ago. I'm still at my brother's and can't contain my feelings. I cry every morning and most of the day. I oscillate between complete debilitating sadness and all-consuming anger. Losing my wife will be hard enough, but how do I ever look at my children again? How do I even begin to forgive them? Alice is supposed to get married in the fall. I've been paying for almost everything. Now I'm probably not going to go. I don't even know how to move forward. I am completely destroyed. Story 10. I ruined my husband's Thanksgiving. Okay, I know I might sound like a lunatic here, but after what my now ex-husband Jake pulled, I think I was justified. Buckle up. Because this Thanksgiving wasn't about gratitude, it was about revenge. So, Jake and I had been married for 6 years, and I thought things were fine. But 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I found out he'd been screwing Megan, his coworker, a wannabe Instagram model with the personality of soggy bread. How did I find out? She left her lipstick in his jacket pocket. When I asked about it, Jake stammered something about a group Halloween party. Spoiler alert, they weren't playing dress up, unless sleazy side piece counts as a costume. I did my homework, dug through his phone when he fell asleep early, and bingo, texts, photos, even videos. Not only was he cheating, but he had been bragging about it to his friends. Stuff like, she's hotter than Sarah, and finally found someone who doesn't nag me. Oh, but it gets worse. He invited her to our Thanksgiving dinner because she doesn't have family nearby. Instead of kicking him out right then, I smiled, kissed his lying face, and said, "Of course, babe. The more, the merrier." Thanksgiving was my Super Bowl now, and I was going all out. I prepped every dish with care, but I had a few secret ingredients to add some spice. Megan was all smiles when she showed up with her dollar store wine, acting like she wasn't sleeping with my husband. I played nice, complimented her dress, which screamed clearance rack, and made sure she got a front row seat to the drama. When everyone sat down for dinner, I kicked things off with a toast. I just want to say how thankful I am for family, for friends, and for clarity. You see, I've recently learned so much about myself and the people I thought I could trust. Jake, Megan, I locked eyes with them. This is really your moment. Cue the awkward silence. Then, I pulled out my laptop connected to the TV. Oh yes, I made a PowerPoint with screenshots of their texts, photos of them sneaking around, and a particularly spicy video of Megan doing, well, let's just say something that made Jake's mom scream. Oh my God. The table exploded. Jake was yelling, Megan was crying, his parents were mortified, and my mom just sat there sipping her wine like she was watching her favorite soap opera. But I wasn't done. Oh, and Megan, I said, cutting through the chaos, I wanted to make sure you felt special today. So, I made you something. I went to the kitchen and came back with a casserole dish. Everyone watched as I dramatically removed the foil, revealing a pile of raw turkey guts, the kind they pull out before selling. I call this homewrecker surprise. Enjoy. Then I dumped the entire dish onto Megan's lap. The sound she made was somewhere between a shriek and a gag. She bolted from the table covered in blood and slime. Jake tried to follow her, but I stopped him. Oh, you're not going anywhere. You see, I packed your stuff. It's in the garage. Also, I called your boss and let him know what a great team player you are. Don't worry, he'll be reviewing those videos personally. His face went pale. He didn't even try to argue, just slunk out like the pathetic loser he is. His mom started crying, his dad apologized to me, and my mom raised her glass and said, "Best Thanksgiving ever." Story 11. I thought my neighbor was a jerk, but then I found this in my mailbox. So, I have this neighbor, Dave. He's one of those guys who's always grumbling about something. If it's not the lawnmower noise, it's the kids running around, or the weather being too hot or too cold. He's also notorious for calling people out if their trash cans are a few inches over the property line or if they park too close to the curb. I've never had an issue with him directly, but I'll admit, I've always found him a bit insufferable. He's that guy who'll stand on his porch and stare you down like you're doing something wrong even though you're just, like, checking your mail. Anyway, last week, I got home from work and checked my mailbox. I had a few letters, mostly bills and junk mail, but one envelope caught my eye. It was from Dave. My first thought was, what now? Is he complaining about my dog barking? But when I opened it, I was honestly taken aback. Inside, there was a simple note that read, I've noticed your car's brake light has been out for a few days. Just wanted to let you know before it becomes a bigger issue. Dave. There was no scolding, no attitude. Just a genuine attempt to help. I had no idea how long the brake light had been out, but sure enough, I checked it later, and it was dead. I immediately went over to his house to thank him. When I knocked on his door, he just shrugged and said, I figured you'd appreciate the heads up. Doesn't make sense to have someone driving around with it not working. It hit me how wrong I've been about him. Maybe he's not the grouchy old guy I thought he was. Maybe he's just a little more blunt than others, but still cares about the community. Moral of the story, don't judge a book by its grumpy cover. What do you think? Would you add anything to it? Story 12. My neighbor kept parking in my driveway, so I sold his car. If you only read the title, I might sound like a lunatic. But trust me, he had it coming. I live in a quiet neighborhood with assigned driveways. My neighbor, Todd, decided that mine was also his personal parking space. At first, I was polite. I asked him to move. He apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. It happened again, and again, and again. One day, I came home to find his car parked there again, blocking me from my own garage. I knocked on his door. No answer. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I had places to be, and I was done playing nice. So, I got creative. I called the towing company, but not to tow it away. I had it towed for sale. See, Todd had left his car unlocked. And in my state, if a vehicle is left on private property without permission, the owner of the property can have it removed. I also happened to have a buddy who owned a tow yard, and he was more than happy to help. Within an hour, Todd's car was on its way to an impound lot where it would be legally auctioned if he didn't pay the fines. Todd showed up at my door that night, fuming. Where's my car? I shrugged. Not my problem. Maybe check the impound lot. He had to shell out a few $100 to get it back. He never parked in my driveway again. Story 13. My neighbor destroyed my chicken coop because I have a pool. So I've M27 been living in this house for about 3 years. It's not fancy, but it's mine, and I've put a lot of love into it. Especially the backyard. Over time, I built a nice little setup. Pool, garden, and a small chicken coop. I have a neighbor named Dave. Dave didn't seem like a bad guy when I first moved in. A little quiet. Then I installed the pool, and everything changed. Suddenly he started complaining about everything. The mosquitoes, which makes no sense with chlorine. What I didn't know right away was that a mutual friend of mine had an affair with Dave's wife. I had no part in it, but Dave found out, and because I'm friends with the guy, he's been holding a personal grudge against me ever since. I guess the pool was just the final straw in his head. Fast forward to last week. I walk outside and see my chicken coop fucked up. Wire fencing ripped open, panels knocked down, feed spilled everywhere. One of my hens was missing and another had a broken wing. My Ring camera footage shows Dave, after midnight, stumbling into my yard with a shovel. Drunk off his ass, just smashing the coop like it wronged him personally. I called the cops. Filed a report. Animal cruelty, property damage, trespassing, you name it. He tried to deny it until I told the officer I had video. Then he went silent. Now he's avoiding me completely, but I hear him mumbling shit when I walk past. I've rebuilt the coop, reinforced everything, and the remaining chickens are okay. But yeah, having a pool made him mad. The affair made him vengeful. And my poor chickens paid the price. People are wild. Story 14. A Mormon friend got in trouble for having a disgusting picture on his phone. I went to Air Force basic training like 6 years ago. They took away our phones on day 1, and we didn't get them back until 10 weeks later. I remember when I finally got to look at it after so long, it was like the brightest, most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. At technical school, we were living in a dorm-like building, and there was a WhatsApp group chat that airmen leaders made for everyone in the building. Its intended purpose was to dole out the chores and cleaning responsibilities. But that group chat rapidly turned into a wasteland for the weirdest, most depraved memes you've ever seen. These 18-year-old kids who just got all their phones back had absolutely no chill. My phone was pinging at all hours of the day and night as a torrent of weird memes poured into the group chat. The airmen leaders kept posting that memes were not allowed in the group chat, but the 18-year-old masses were unstoppable. They were equipped with a seemingly endless arsenal of fucked-up memes. One day, somebody posted a meme that was a 4-panel comic of a thick Winnie the Pooh. He was wearing a thong and a bra, and he had a jar of honey stuck on his head. He was bumbling around, knocking everything in his house over with his thick ass and his huge, juicy tits as he tried to get the jar of honey off his head. Well, that turned out to be the straw that broke the camel's back. The mods of the WhatsApp group chat changed the settings so that only they could post messages. But after that, they only posted about the chores once a week, and they didn't delete any of the memes, so that thick Winnie the Pooh meme was still visible on the group chat for weeks. My Mormon friend Terry went to dinner with his wife, and she happened to see the thick Winnie the Pooh meme on his phone. She was inconsolable. She could not understand why her devout, religious husband would have such a disgusting thing on his phone. It actually turned into a big deal in their marriage. One day he brought her to morning formation so he could prove to her that the thick Winnie the Pooh wasn't just on his phone. Me and a bunch of other airmen pulled out our phones and opened the WhatsApp group chat to show her that the meme was on our phones too. I'll never forget the unfathomable look on that poor little Mormon girl's face as her eyes darted frantically from one thick Winnie the Pooh to the next in the early morning light. Story 15. Horrific first date overheard at a seafood restaurant. A heavy-set man with red hair and a red beard was sitting across from me to the left at the adjacent table. An elegant young woman with a touch of makeup and saucer eyes sat directly to my left across from him. The man began drinking a whiskey cocktail right away. After initially declining, the woman ordered a glass of wine but asked for it to come with her meal. They still brought it out with his drink by mistake. The configuration was such that the woman and I shared a booth, although we had separate tables. They were seated at the same time I was. Both appeared to be in their mid-20s. This was a mid-tier restaurant in Greater Boston. I was a little early and my dinner companion was a little late, so I spent about 20 minutes listening to these people's back and forth. This part of the conversation came after about 5 minutes of small talk driven entirely by the woman. Bored waiting for my dinner companion and socially anxious in the restaurant alone, I began noting down their conversation, a habit of mine. I think of it like doodling but with words. Woman. So I have to be honest, I've never gone out with someone from an app before. I'm not all too familiar with how things like this go. Man. I've been on a lot of these. Woman. That's nice. Silence. Woman. So was there anything you wanted to know about me? Man. Sure. Like what? Woman. I mean, never mind. So what's the difference between a journeyman plumber and a regular plumber? Man. No difference really. Woman. Oh. Well, I had to go to school for 4 years. You know, to get my degree for my job. I always thought it was so cool how some people just got right into working. Man. I have a degree. Woman. Oh, that's cool. What in? Man, communications. Woman, really? Man, yeah. What? Woman, that just caught me a little by surprise. Only because you're now working in plumbing, I mean. Man, sure do. Woman, you know, I get nervous on first dates sometimes, and I can talk way too much. Don't hesitate to jump in. Man, you're fine. Woman, so have you lived out here your whole life? Man, whole life. Woman, when people ask me where I'm from, I'm never quite sure how to answer because I actually grew up on a houseboat, and man, is that why you picked a seafood place? Woman, oh, haha. That's a good one. I've never gotten that one. Man stares blankly. Woman, no, actually my family doesn't know the first thing about fishing. My parents are marine biologists. They basically research whales. Like how George pretended to on Seinfeld, but for real. So we were, man, you can eat whales? Woman, no. Man, oh. Woman, are you feeling all right? If this isn't a good time, or I said something that rubbed you the wrong way, we can do this some other time. Man, no, you're fine. Woman, you know, funny story, I actually studied something different from what I ended up doing for work also. I majored in physics and I only minored in music because I wanted accountability to not forget how to play the piano while I was busy with school. But I enjoyed it so much I thought, Why not take a year and just do music stuff? And the rest is history. If you told me I'd be a professional this time 10 years ago, I'd have laughed at you. Man, what kind of money you make doing that? Woman, excuse me? Man, what kind of money you make doing that? Woman, oh, it varies. Man, that's what I figured. Woman, have you been watching anything good on Netflix lately? I'm binging some of my favorite shows from growing up, and watching them at such a different stage of life is kind of interesting. Man studies the menu. Woman, anything look good to you? Man, not really. I'm gonna see if they can just do a regular burger. Woman, I apologize. I should have checked if you like seafood. Man, I do. This stuff's just more or less really overpriced for this area. Woman, oh, I wasn't expecting you to pay. Man, so you're paying? Cool. Maybe I'll get something else then too. Woman, haha. Man, what? Woman, oh, you were making a joke, right? Man, what joke? Woman, I meant I didn't expect you to pay for my half. Man, oh. Woman, I'm not super hungry. I might just stick with the glass of wine. Man, okay. I'll hurry up and order then. The service is mad slow in here, it seems like. Woman, so besides work, what are your, interest in things? Man, sports. Woman, oh, I like sports too. What do you play? Man, I had a moment in high school, but now I just watch. Would have gone pro if that had been what I wanted. Woman, what else? Oh, I know. Desert Island book choice. Man, I've never been to the desert or anything. I kind of like to stay close to home. Woman, yeah. Well, I'm actually feeling a little off tonight. I think I might have to call it a night. Man, oh, okay. Woman, I'm just going to go pay for this at the bar. Man, okay. Woman, well? Yeah. So have a nice night then. Man, yeah, you too. This was chill. I'll text you. Woman, goodbye. For all his talk about the pricing, he did stay and eat his off-menu burger. I feel like I hear these non-conversations more and more often, where one or both parties bring nothing to the table and seem like they're just trying to get it over with. From very new couples to people who seem to have been together a long time. Of course, this is an extreme example, but the number of young people, young men in particular, who I encounter that are just existing and seem to make no effort towards living is staggering to me. It feels different than even 5 years ago when I was on the dating scene. Maybe it's just me. In any case, thanks for reading the story if you've come this far. Story 16. Found my neighbor practically dead. So last week I noticed my elderly widower neighbor, 90M, let's call him Frank, had 2 newspapers in front of his driveway. Every day he brings the paper in and sits out front on the porch reading it, so I thought it was odd 2 days' worth was out there. Brought it up to the house and peeked in the garage window and saw his car still there. I looked through all the windows into all the rooms. He was 100% not home. I figured he went out of town to family for Labor Day. Saw him the following day at the house reading his paper and talked to him, and sure enough he went out of town. Told him I checked the house to make sure he was okay, and he appreciated that. Today I happened to go outside again, been under the weather this week, and saw there was 3 papers out there. I grabbed them and brought them up the house and was going to do the routine of making sure he wasn't home, and I happened to notice that the living room window was wide open and all the lights were on. Peeked in and didn't see anything. Saw car in garage again. I thought, okay, maybe he just forgot to shut the window and left a light on for security. Went around the back and crap. Back door wide open. Just the screen latched. He may be old, but he's not that careless. Called the cops and they arrived within a minute, small town, and we made entry. We found him on his recliner, barely conscious. He couldn't make it to his phone to call for help. Called for an ambulance and they got there in 5 minutes and brought him to hospital. Looks like he may have had a stroke, all the symptoms. Found Frank Jr.'s phone number and gave him the info and secured the house. Going to pray for him tonight and go over tomorrow and clean up the couch, soiled it from sitting for 3 days, and then stop to hospital to check on him, although they probably won't give me info since not family. Moral of story, please check on your elderly neighbors. If something don't seem right, it probably isn't. Story 17. I turned down a $200,000 job offer because it wasn't remote, and now my friends think I'm selfish and privileged. I, 29, am, recently faced a dilemma that has sparked a lot of heated debates among my friends and family. I was offered a position at a top-tier tech company with a $200,000 salary, which is a massive increase from my current pay. It was my dream job, exciting projects, a top-notch team, and great growth prospects. The catch? It required me to relocate to a major city and work in an office full-time. Here's the kicker. I've been working remotely for the past 3 years and I absolutely love it. My current setup allows me to work from a cozy rural area, where I've built a life that suits my needs, low stress, a great quality of life, and time for personal passions. Remote work has not only enhanced my productivity but also my well-being. After much consideration, I turned down the offer. My decision has sparked outrage among my friends and family. They argue that I'm being selfish and privileged for prioritizing my comfort over a significant career opportunity. They point out that not everyone has the luxury of turning down high-paying jobs and suggest that I'm out of touch with reality. Some even accuse me of having an entitled attitude, given that many people would jump at the chance for such a substantial salary boost. I understand their frustration, but I genuinely believe that my quality of life and personal happiness are worth more to me than a fat paycheck. But now I'm questioning if I'm missing out on a crucial career milestone. Am I being unrealistic and out of touch? Or is my focus on personal well-being justified? TLDR. I turned down a $200,000 job offer because it wasn't remote, and now my friends think I'm selfish and out of touch. Am I wrong for valuing remote work and personal happiness over a huge salary increase? Story 18. A little boy came up to me at a playground and told me he's not my dad. I remember this so vividly. It was so scary. I was a nanny a few years ago for 3 little girls, 1, 4, and 6 years old. After school, we went to the playground up the hill. There were a few parents and little children there. I kept an eye on the elder girls as I was with the baby on the baby swing. Parents and their kids left until a boy around 3 was left playing with the girls under my care. I noticed his dad sitting on the picnic chair on his phone. I was a bit peeved that I seemed to now be watching over 4 kids, not 3. The boy then slowly came over to me and kind of clung himself to me. I thought he was coming for a cuddle, so I said and put an arm around him asking if he was all right. He looked a bit sad. He then said, "He's not my dad." I skeptically looked at the man then asked, "Who is he? Uncle? Stepdad?" And the boy looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I don't know." My heart dropped. I went into protective mode and my instincts made me put the boy behind me. I looked back at the man who was now approaching us. My heart was beating so hard. I told the girls we were leaving right now and grabbed the baby. The girls complained but headed for their bikes behind the man. I looked around, but no one else was there. I only saw some people walking along the street at the bottom of the hill, so I could shout to them if needed. I warned him to stay back and held on to the boy. He asked what I was doing, looking at my grip on the boy. I was panicking and backing away. He told me to let go of him. I told him what the boy said and that if he touches him or I will scream, looking toward the people so that he knew we weren't technically alone. He kind of laughed nervously and addressed the boy who didn't even look at him or move. I told him to leave us alone. He just stared at me in shock with his hands up, like I was the dangerous one. I said I'm calling the police, letting go of the boy, and got my phone out, the baby still in my arms. He panicked and said that he was his stepdad, or soon-to-be stepdad. I said, "Yeah, right." He explained that he was dating his mother, and she was still at work, so he got him from school and brought him here until she gets home. I didn't believe him, so I started dialing, "Better to have them deal with this, and be safe, not sorry." As I spoke, shaking like crazy, I beckoned the boy to stay by me and away from the man. The boy was silently crying. Poor little guy was terrified. The man was exasperated and bright red, which made me more nervous cause what if he hurts me or the kids? My girls were watching on their bikes and asking me what's going on. The worst part was waiting for the police. He was between me and the girls, and I was between him and a fence. The police came pretty quickly though, and I explained everything, and the man tried to explain himself. The police were also skeptical of him. Thank God I wasn't just overreacting. I told the boy how good he was coming to me for help, and the policewoman took the boy. The man called his girlfriend, the boy's mother, to get her to come. I didn't want to just leave. I felt responsible since the boy came to me for help and comfort. So, I let the girls continue playing on the playground while we waited for the mother, who came straight away. When she arrived, the boy ran straight to her crying. The police explained, I explained, and the mother was so embarrassed. I pretty much told her off, and the man, of course, for scaring me, my girls, and the boy. The boy hardly knows the man, hardly recognizes who he is, and doesn't understand what he is to him, and was clearly not comfortable with him. He is too young to get the concept of mom's boyfriend, not dad, and when you're that young, remembering people whom you have only met a few times is hard. She was so sorry. I'm glad he wasn't that trusting, because a lot of kids get caught out trusting strangers or acquaintances. Also hard to navigate their parents dating. I finally left with the girls. I had a diaper to change. Felt bad for the man eventually, as he was just trying to help his girlfriend out and bond with the kid. And the mom probably thought it would be a good way for him to get to know her son, one-on-one. But they didn't think about the boy's feelings and how outsiders would perceive. I am scarred from it, though. Thought he was a pedo abducting him, and that he was going to hurt me and or the children. Story 19. Girl left me for a richer guy. The wedding apparently was a shit show. This happened many years ago, but I have been wanting to tell this for a while. Back in the happy-go-lucky days of the late 1990s, I had a college girlfriend, Courtney, and like many a young man, I thought she was the one. That turned out very inaccurate. Courtney decided to start seeing someone else, Mike. However, she neglected to tell me about it and started seeing Mike while we were still a couple. I knew of him, mostly that his dad was rich and he was destined to follow in dad's footsteps and attend Harvard Law and work at a prestigious law firm, which he ultimately did from what little I have heard over the years, but that is for another day. Upon graduation, all three of us were in the same year. Courtney and Mike decided to break the news to me that they were engaged. When I asked, very loudly, why, Courtney just shrugged and said she needed a husband with prospects, translation, money. And to add the cherry on top, the job that I was offered upon graduation announced there was corporate restructuring and the position had been eliminated. So, I did what any recent college graduate with whose job plans disappeared and whose girlfriend just ditched him for a richer guy. I joined the Army. I thought I would do this Army thing for a few years before figuring something out. But by the time I finished with OCS, Ranger School, and assigned to a regiment, it was September 2001. I am sure you can guess how busy those years became. A year later, as my first tour in Afghanistan was winding down, I received a DVD from Jamie, a college friend who also knew Courtney and Mike and was well aware of what happened between us. A note with the DVD said, "Please watch, you will love it." The DVD was their wedding. It looked like a high-end venue, and the bride was looking every bit as beautiful as I remembered. Things were going as expected until the minister said the speak now part, and that was when the gates of hell opened. A man stood, someone I did not know, and demanded how could Courtney go through with this. Courtney's face went white and pleading when she saw him. The man, who I dubbed Rick, wanted to know how Courtney could do this him. Welcome to the club. Then Rick dropped the bomb. Courtney was carrying their child. Mike's face went red as he looked at Rick, then at Courtney, realizing that the woman he was about to marry, the woman who cheated on me with him, was more than likely pregnant and not by him. But that was not the best part. As the wedding guests were probably processing what Rick said, the camera turned as someone else yelled. This time a woman, dubbed Mary, who was very pregnant herself. Any shred of moral high ground Rick had was gone when Mary cradled her belly and demanded to know how Mike was going to take care of their child. The DVD ended with the parents of the not-wedded couple pulled their respective kids aside and left the venue. It did not take a genius to figure out that the wedding was called off. And Jamie's note was right. I did love it. It made my day to see the woman who carelessly broke my heart so publicly embarrassed. I showed it to my comrades who found it hilarious. Over a year later, this time in Iraq, that DVD would provide some joy on days when shit had really hit the fan. I only heard bits and pieces of what happened after the ill-fated wedding. As I said earlier, Mike did go on to be a lawyer and apparently did well. Courtney got a job and went on with her life. I can only guess that they wound up with the other person, or at least raised their kids. Beyond that, I know little and care even less. As for me, I stayed in the Army. I would return to Afghanistan and Iraq more than once. I would serve in places I am still not allowed to discuss and deal with enemies who made bin Laden look like Gandhi. But those are other stories. Story 20. My boss fired me, then begged me to come back a month later. So, this happened about 6 months ago, but I still think about it constantly. I was working at a small but successful marketing firm for about 3 years. It wasn't my dream job, but I was good at it, and I liked my coworkers. My boss, however, was, let's say, difficult. The kind of guy who micromanages everything but then blames others when things go wrong. One day, he called me into his office and, completely out of nowhere, told me he was letting me go. His reasoning? You just don't seem passionate enough about the work. I was stunned. I had consistently met my deadlines, gotten great feedback from clients, and never once had a complaint against me. I asked for specifics, but all he could say was that he needed someone with more enthusiasm. Fine. Whatever. I took my severance, left, and within 2 weeks landed a better-paying job with a fully remote setup. Life was good. Then, about a month later, I got a text from my old boss. It was just a simple, "Hey, can we talk?" I ignored it. The next day, I got a LinkedIn message, then an email. Finally, a voicemail where he actually apologized and said things at the firm were falling apart without me. Apparently, my replacement quit after 2 weeks, and clients were unhappy. I won't lie. I considered going back just to see how desperate he really was. But instead, I sent a short, polite email saying I had already moved on and wished him the best. A few weeks ago, I caught up with a former coworker who confirmed that my ex-boss is now handling my old workload himself, and absolutely hating it. Feels good. Story 21. Girl offered me a ride home after we met at the airport. I was flying back from a bachelor party and waiting at the gate to board. This girl approached me after I noticed her looking at me, and she then comes over and asks a question about the boarding order. She was pretty bubbly with me, and I felt a bit of a vibe. Didn't think too much of it and continued to mind my own business. Eventually, I make my way onto the plane as one of the last to board. It's assigned seating, and who is sitting right next to me? That's right. Now this is starting to feel like a rom-com. I sit down, and we immediately start chatting and hitting it off. Similar interests, and she is going to college in my hometown. Quick flight, but chatted a ton the whole way, and she's asking me tons of questions. After landing, we just kept talking all the way from leaving the plane, through the airport, and to the curb. Once outside she asks how I'm getting home. I tell her Uber, and she then offers to give me a ride as her car is parked there. Gladly accepted, and away we go. My actual first thought was, hell, you free ride. The whole ride I'm thinking what all the dudes reading this are thinking. Do I invite her in? In short, I didn't. I asked for her hashtag, and we ended up texting for a few days, and I asked her to get coffee. She politely declined, and that was that. Even though nothing came of it, it's a great story, but I'll always wonder if I had invited her in, would she have accepted? Or was she just a super nice girl with some airport infatuation? Also, it should be noted she was a 20-year-old sophomore in college, and I was 27, so I took that into account as well. Story 22. I worked security at the hotel where one of the biggest musical artists in the world stayed, and it was interesting to see how that works. I occasionally do weekend security work at one of the swankiest hotels in my city, and sometimes big names stay there while they are in town. I won't name the celebrity, but I will just call her Amy. The one thing that really stood out to me was how every single one of her movements was planned and choreographed. Like I said, she is one of the biggest musical artists in the world right now, and she would no doubt get swarmed if she walked through a public area and people realized it was her, so shielding her from the public was the #1 priority. All of the hotel staff had a pre-shift meeting with her security team. There was some basic guidelines such as do not speak to her unless spoken to, do not let any guests know she is staying here, do not ask for a picture or an autograph, and let them take the lead. I'm sure all of the security members on her team were carrying weapons of some kind, but they were all wearing jackets and I didn't see any firearms on them. She was driven from the airport to our hotel in a SUV with blacked-out windows, and she came in through the loading dock. My only job at that moment was to stand in front of a door leading to the maintenance area to ensure that nobody tried to get through. Like I said, anytime she was moving, it was highly coordinated and choreographed. Everybody had their place, and there was nobody in the area that was not part of the team. She did not look at anybody or say anything. She just sauntered in looking kind of miserable tbh. She was brought up in the freight elevator, and there was members of her security team on every floor in front of the freight elevator to make sure nobody got on while she was still in it. She had a room on the top floor, and that entire floor as well as the floor below it were completely bought out by her and her team. Guests can only go to the floor that they are staying on by way of swiping their room cards. There were members of her security team posted by the elevators all night just in case somebody somehow snuck onto that floor. What I got out of the experience was being thankful that I can walk around like a normal person and nobody gives a fuck. I feel like having to be consistently hidden from you, and the restrictions that come with that would be pretty miserable. Story 23. I conversed with a group of teens hours before they shot and killed a man to steal his car. This occurred outside my home roughly 10 days ago. It's just past 5 p.m., and I'm watching TV with my dog. My wife looks out our living room window and says to me, "There's 4 gentlemen huddled next to your car." I get up and look out the window to see a couple teenage boys and a couple other slightly younger boys eyeing my car on the street. I grab my keys and walk out our front door, unlocking the car remotely, which startles them. Immediately, the eldest boy says to me, "Hey, I know this looks bad. I'm just using your car for a mirror." The rest of the boys stay silent and look away. I reassure him and say, "All good. I'm just grabbing something from my car," as I shuffle around and grab my sunglasses. I shut the door and casually ask, "So what's going on, guys?" The eldest is the only one to speak and says, "Nothing. We're just waiting for a friend to pick us up." I tell them to stay safe, give him a fist bump, and head back inside. They walk away shortly after. The next day, my wife shows me a news story of a 64-year-old Uber driver who had been shot by a group of 4 teens. Too much of a coincidence, I thought, but the ages of the boys in the article matched what the group of boys outside my house appeared to be the previous day. I shrugged it off as happenstance and went about my day. 3 days later, a couple of the boys were shown in court on the news, and sure enough, they were the same group I had spoken to, aged 11 to 17. It could have been me who they shot and stole a car from, and I wonder today why they didn't. Simply because I treated them with respect? Counting myself lucky. Story 24. Today, I paid for a stranger's groceries. Today, I was in a long line for the checkout. I live in Florida, and the lines are long with this hurricane on the way. There was a guy in front of us holding the line up. I asked my wife what was going on to stall the line. She said it looks like this guy had his card declined. She points to the guy he was 2 ahead of us. At this time, the manager came out and voided the transaction. The guy was with his daughter, approximately 10 years old. His clothes were a little tight and had stains on them. His daughter was dressed like her clothes came from Walmart or a thrift shop. I'm not judging, just trying to create the actual scene. The guy was staring at his phone, very embarrassed and frustrated. I told my wife we had to pay for his food without a thought, wondering how to do this without bringing more attention to the guy or to us. I jump out of line and ask the manager what the issue was with the guy because I would pay for his food if his card was declined. She told me she wasn't sure what the issue, but it was card related. At this time, people start looking, and I was trying not to create attention. Now, I don't care what the reason is because they're obviously not giving the guy the food. So the guy and his daughter started walking out of the store empty. I call out to the guy from behind, trying to stop him. Hey buddy, excuse me. Come on back in here, let me help you." He looks at me confused. I was watching the whole time. He comes back in, and the employees are taking his cart to reshelf the food he tried to buy. I tell the customer service I'll pay for his food. I didn't even know how much it was. Didn't matter. I pay the bill. It was only about $60. The guy tries to hand me a little cash. Maybe he's a little embarrassed. I smile and shake his hand, tell him no way. He hugs me. He hugged me. My wife runs out of the store crying. I am not telling this story to brag or for any other reason, except to explain my view on this. I believe that I had no choice but to pay for his groceries. I am in a position to do it, and I feel that it is our duty to help each other in this life when given the chance. We rarely have opportunities in life to assist our fellow humans, resulting in a direct positive impact that we can feel. It matters not the cost. Yes, I know there are a lot of charities to which one can donate, but you rarely feel the impact of your donation. There is usually high overhead, and a fraction of your donation actually goes to help. I feel incredibly sad that people suffer, can't buy food, etc. I feel incredibly fortunate for my life. Looking back, I wish I had done more. I would have bought him some gift cards for the food store. I think sometimes we are caught up in our own lives and don't realize that people standing right next to us are struggling, suffering. I will be on the lookout to help less fortunate people more often, and I will be less absorbed in my own life, which will give me this opportunity. Story 25. Playing Scrabble with my brother on Christmas Eve led to us discovering he has a brain tumor. On Christmas Eve, my brother and my husband and I are across the country from where we live visiting our grandparents. It's over 24 hours drive from where the three of us live. My brother and grandparents just got home from Mass. The three of us are playing Scrabble. My husband and I are drinking some whiskey, and unbeknownst to us, so is my younger brother. He's acting like he only had one beer, places second in Scrabble. The little fucker stands up and then collapses into a pile while mumbling unintelligibly. What the hell? Husband and I are trying to get him alert again. It's no use. He pissed himself and his eyes are closed. My grandparents are now alert to this. They're not immediately freaking out, but I decide he probably has alcohol poisoning and needs to go to the ER. Doesn't matter, it's Christmas Eve. My husband and grandfather load him into one car, and then my husband drives ahead of my grandfather and we bring him to the ER, where he's admitted, and it's discovered after 2 hours of waiting his ABV is 0.34. Not good at all. We aren't allowed to see him that night and think we're going to have to pick him up Christmas morning. It's 4 a.m., and we're notified he was moved to a bigger hospital and that we can see him. We're informed he's been intubated, catheterized, and he's in restraints. None of us has ever heard of this for alcohol poisoning. It turns out, after they saw some rug burn above his eyebrow from when he fell, they decided to do a CT scan and found a 2 centimeters mass in his brain. They do more testing and an MRI, and he definitely has a tumor, and he needs to be operated on in the next 2 weeks. They're now advising he gets the operation in the state we live in, and he will take 2 months to recover. This tumor would have never been found if he didn't sneak too much whiskey during board games. Edit. Relevant info. He is 17 and we are mid-20s. We're fairly sure it's not cancer, however, it is causing issues. Both of his parents traveled up about 10 states to see him. If you ever think anyone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, please bring them to the hospital, even if a voice in the back of your head tells you you're overreacting. His response to the alcohol was actually completely irrelevant to the tumor. My brother is smart, hilarious, and wants to be a welder when he grows up, and actually already has a lot of experience for his age. All of the positive thoughts are so appreciated. I will be updating on my profile after they biopsy the tumor. When I first saw him after he woke up, all he wanted to talk about was how his catheter mashed up his dick. Story 26. I'm a 911 operator. The call about the boy in the wardrobe was horrifying. The truth about the caller was something else entirely. I'm a 911 operator. I work the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You hear a lot of things in this job. A lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of just weirdness. But usually, there's an explanation. Usually, it fits into a box, however grim that box might be. This one doesn't fit in any box I know, and it's been eating at me for weeks. I need to get it out. I've changed some minor details to protect privacy, but the core of it, the part that keeps me up when I finally get home, that's all here. It was a Tuesday, or technically Wednesday morning, around 2:30 a.m. The witching hour, some call it. For us, it's usually just the quiet before the post-bar closing storm, or the time when the truly desperate calls come in. The air in the dispatch center was stale, smelling faintly of lukewarm coffee and the ozone hum of too many electronics. My screen glowed with the CAD, computer-aided dispatch, system, mostly green, all quiet. I was idly tracing the condensation ring my water bottle left on the desk, trying to stay alert. Then a call dropped into my queue. Standard ring. I clicked to answer. 911. What is the address of your emergency? Standard opening. My voice was calm, practiced. The other end was quiet for a beat, just a ragged, shallow breath. Then, a woman's voice, tight and trembling. I don't know if this is an emergency. I think I'm going crazy. Not an uncommon start, especially at this hour. Loneliness, paranoia, sometimes undiagnosed mental health issues. Okay, ma'am, can you tell me what's happening? And I still need your address so I know where you are. Yes, yes, of course. It's 1427 Hawthorne Lane. Her voice was thin. My name is... Well, that doesn't matter right now, does it? I typed the address into the system. Popped up clean. Residential. Okay, 1427 Hawthorne Lane. Got it. Tell me what's going on, ma'am. There's someone in my wardrobe. My internal check-a-box system clicked. Possible home invasion. Or, again, paranoia. Someone in your wardrobe? Are you sure? Have you seen them? No, not seen. Heard. She took a shaky breath. It started about an hour ago. A knocking sound. From inside my bedroom wardrobe. A knocking sound. I prompted, keeping my tone even. Could it be pipes? An animal in the walls? The usual rationalizations. No, it's not like that. It's deliberate. Like someone tapping to get out. I thought I was dreaming or just hearing things. You know, old house sounds. But it kept happening. Tap, 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 tap. She mimicked it, and even through the phone line, the distinct rhythm was unsettling. Are you alone in the house, ma'am? Yes, completely alone. My husband, he passed away last year. Her voice hitched a little on that. I made a mental note. Grief can do strange things to the mind. I'm very sorry for your loss, ma'am. I said genuinely. This knocking, did you try to investigate it? I was too scared at first. I just lay in bed, pulling the covers up. But it wouldn't stop. It just kept going. So, eventually, I got up. I turned on the light. I went to the wardrobe. Her breathing was getting faster. I could hear the faint rustle of fabric, like she was wringing her hands or clutching her clothes. And what happened when you got to the wardrobe, ma'am? The knocking stopped when I got close. And then I heard a voice. Her voice dropped to a whisper. A little boy's voice. It said, "Help me. Please, help me. I'm trapped." A chill, faint but definite, traced its way down my spine. This was different. A boy's voice. From inside the wardrobe. Yes. He sounded so scared. He said his daddy put him in there and he can't get out. Okay. This was escalating. A child's voice claiming to be trapped by his father. This had moved past old house sounds. But still, the details were odd. A child just appearing in a wardrobe? Ma'am, did you open the wardrobe door? Yes. As soon as he said that, I threw it open. I don't know what I was expecting, but there was nothing there. Her voice cracked with a mixture of fear and confusion. Just my clothes. Shoes on the floor. Nothing. And the voice, it was gone. Silence. Nothing at all. I clarified. No sign of anyone. No way a child could be hiding? No, it's not a deep wardrobe. You'd see. I even pushed clothes aside. It was empty. I thought. I must have imagined it. The stress, being alone. And what happened then? I asked, leaning forward slightly. My other hand was hovering over the dispatch button, but I needed more. This felt off. Not like a prank. Prank callers usually have a different energy, a smugness, or a forced panic. This woman sounded genuinely terrified and bewildered. I was so relieved, but also so confused. I stood there for a minute, trying to catch my breath. Then I closed the wardrobe door. She paused, and I could hear a sharp intake of air. And the second it latched, the knocking started again. Louder this time. And the little boy's voice. Please, don't leave me in here. He'll be angry if he finds out I was talking. Her voice broke into a sob. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. Is it a ghost? Am I losing my mind? But it sounds so real. I took a slow breath myself. My skepticism was warring with a growing sense of unease. The sequence of events was bizarre, but her terror felt authentic. Okay, ma'am. Stay on the line with me. You're in your bedroom now. No, I ran out. I'm in the living room. I locked the bedroom door. But I can still faintly hear it. The knocking. Is the wardrobe in your master bedroom? Yes, the big one. Oh God, he's talking again. Her voice was hushed, urgent. He's saying his dad locked him in because he was a bad boy. He said his dad gets really mad and hurts him sometimes. That was it. That specific detail, the abuse allegation. Whether this was a delusion, a ghost, or something else entirely, If there was even a fraction of a chance a child was in danger, we had to act. My fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating a dispatch for a welfare check, possibly a child endangerment situation. I coded it high priority. Ma'am, I'm sending officers to your location right now, okay? They're going to check this out. I need you to stay on the phone with me. They're coming? Oh, thank God. Thank you. Relief flooded her voice, but the undercurrent of terror remained. He's crying now. The little boy. He's saying his dad told him if he made any noise, he'd be in for it. He says he's scared of the dark. I relayed the additional information to the responding units. Caller states she can hear a child's voice from a wardrobe, claiming his father locked him in and abuses him. Child is reportedly scared and crying. The dispatcher on the radio acknowledged. Units en route. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes can feel like an eternity on a call like this. I tried to keep her talking, to keep her grounded. Ma'am, what's your name? It's Eleanor. Eleanor Vance. Okay, Eleanor. The officers are on their way. Are you somewhere you feel safe right now? I'm in the living room, like I said. I have the door locked. But the sound, it's like it's getting clearer, even from here. Or maybe I'm just listening harder. She paused. He's saying, Daddy says I shouldn't talk to strangers. But you're not a stranger if you're helping, are you? My blood ran cold. The innocence of that, juxtaposed with the implied threat, it was deeply disturbing. Are you talking to him? I asked her. No. It's just, I can hear him so clearly. I don't know how he is talking to me from upstairs. It's just like he can hear me talking to you. Maybe I shouldn't have came down. Maybe I should go back to the room. No. Eleanor, stay where you are. You're helping. And we're helping too. Wait for the dispatch, please. I could hear her quiet, fearful breathing. I focused on the CAD screen, watching the little car icons representing the patrol units crawl across the map towards Hawthorne Lane. Each tick of the clock in the dispatch center sounded unnaturally loud. Eleanor, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. When the officers arrive, they'll knock. Let them know it's you, okay? Yes, I will. She was quiet for a moment. Then, he's saying thank you. The little boy. He says he hopes they come soon because it's hard to breathe in here. Hard to breathe. My stomach clenched. That detail was chillingly specific. Ventilation in a closed wardrobe wouldn't be great. They're almost there, Eleanor. Just a couple more minutes. Unit 214. Show us on scene at 1427 Hawthorne. The voice of Officer Miller crackled through my headset. Copy that. 214. Caller is Eleanor Vance. Should be expecting you. She's in the living room. Reports hearing a child in a wardrobe in the master bedroom. 10 to 4, Central. I relayed this to Eleanor. They're there, Eleanor. They're at your door. Oh, thank heavens. I heard a faint shuffling sound, as if she was getting up. Then, nothing for a few seconds. I expected to hear her talking to the officers, the sound of a door opening. Instead, Officer Miller's voice came back on the radio, sounding puzzled. Central, we have a male subject at the door. Advises he's the homeowner. My brow furrowed. A male subject? Ask him if Eleanor Vance is present, or if there's any female resident. A brief pause. Central, negative. Male states he lives here alone with his son. Says there's no Eleanor Vance here. No female resident at all. A cold dread, far deeper than before, began to spread through me. I looked at the address on my screen. 1427, Hawthorne Lane. Confirmed. Eleanor. I said into the phone. Eleanor, are you there? The officers are saying a man answered the door. They say there's no woman there. Her voice came back, faint and laced with utter confusion. What? No, that's impossible. I'm here. This is my house. I'm looking out the living room window. I can see the patrol car. Unit 214, I said, my voice tight. Caller on the line insists she is inside the residence. States she can see your vehicle. This was getting stranger by the second. Central, the male subject is adamant. He's looking pretty confused himself. Says no one else should be here. Miller sounded wary. Says his name is Arthur Collins. He's got ID. Eleanor. I pressed. What does this man look like? The one at the door. I can't see him clearly from here. Just his shape. Her voice was trembling violently now. But this is my house. I've lived here for 20 years. My husband, Robert, we bought it together. 214. The caller's name is Eleanor Vance. She says her late husband was Robert. Does the name Vance mean anything to Mr. Collins? I waited, listening to the silence on Eleanor's end, then Miller's response. Central, Mr. Collins says he bought this house 3 years ago. From an estate sale. Previous owner was deceased. A Robert Vance. My heart hammered against my ribs. Estate sale. Previous owner deceased. Robert Vance. That meant Eleanor Vance. Eleanor, I said softly. The officer said Mr. Collins bought the house 3 years ago from the estate of a Robert Vance. Eleanor, your husband's name was Robert, you said. There was a long, drawn-out silence on her end. Just the sound of her breathing, growing more ragged, more panicked. It sounded like she was hyperventilating. Eleanor, can you hear me? Then, a choked sound. No, that can't be right. Robert, he passed last year. Not 3 years ago. I was with him. Her voice was dissolving into confusion and fear. This is my home. This was spiraling out of my control, out of any recognizable scenario. But the child was still the priority. Unit 214, I said, pushing down my own disorientation. Regardless of the caller's status, the initial report was a child trapped in a wardrobe, possibly abused. Mr. Collins states he has a son. You need to verify the welfare of that child. 10-4, Central. Mr. Collins confirms he has a 7-year-old son, says his name is Leo. Says he's asleep upstairs. Ask him if you can see the boy, just to confirm he's okay, given the nature of the call we received. There was a pause. I could hear Miller talking to Collins, muffled. Then Miller came back on. Central, subject is refusing. Says the boy is fine, doesn't want him woken up. He's getting a bit agitated. Eleanor, I whispered into my phone. Are you still there? A faint, broken sound, like a gasp. I don't understand what's happening. 214. Reiterate that due to the specifics of the call, we need to see the child. It's a welfare check. My training kicked in. We had cause. More muffled conversation, then Miller's voice, sharper now. Central, subject is becoming uncooperative, denying access. He's raising his voice. Then, a sudden change in his tone. Hold on. Central, did you hear that? Hear what? 214. A sound. From upstairs. Faint, like a cry. Or a thump. My gut twisted. Eleanor, I said quickly. The wardrobe you heard the knocking from. Which room is it in? The master bedroom, she whispered. Upstairs. At the end of the hall. 214. The original report specified the master bedroom wardrobe upstairs. Did you hear the sound from that direction? Affirmative, Central. Definitely from upstairs. Subject is now trying to block the doorway. Partner is moving to restrain. The line with Eleanor was still open. I could hear her ragged, panicked gasps. It was like listening to someone drowning. Then, chaos erupted on the radio. Shouting, "Sir, step aside. Police. Don't resist." Sounds of a struggle. My own pulse was roaring in my ears. I gripped the phone tighter. Central, we're making entry to check on the child. Officer Miller's voice, strained. Subject is non-compliant. I heard footsteps pounding on the radio feed. Officers moving quickly. Upstairs. Check the bedrooms. Eleanor was making soft, whimpering sounds now. They're in my house, but they can't see me. Robert, what's happening to me, Robert? 214 status? I demanded. Checking rooms. Master bedroom at the end of the hall. Doors closed, a pause, then, it's locked. Eleanor, was your bedroom door locked when you left it? Yes, I locked it, she stammered. 214, caller states she locked that door. Okay, Central. We're announcing, then forcing if no response. I heard them call out. Police. Occupant, open the door. Silence. Then a thud, another. The sound of a door splintering. We're in. Miller shouted. Wardrobe, it's closed. Oh God. Central, we found him. Child in the wardrobe. He's alive. Conscious, but terrified. Small boy. Matches the description. A wave of dizzying relief washed over me. so strong it almost buckled me. He was real. The boy was real. They got to him. Arthur Collins was now in deep, deep trouble. But then the other part of it crashed back in. Eleanor. Eleanor. I said, my voice hoarse. They found him. The little boy, Leo. He's safe. They have him. Her response was a broken whisper, almost inaudible. Leo. His name is Leo. He was real. Yes, Eleanor. He was real. But the officers, they still don't see you. Mr. Collins says you're not there. Eleanor. Where are you in the house right now? A long, shaky sigh. I was in the living room. By the window. But when they came in, they walked right past me. Right through where I was standing. Her voice was filled with a dawning, unutterable horror. They didn't see me. He didn't see me. Eleanor. I didn't know what to say. What could I possibly say? The wardrobe, the master bedroom. That's where I heard him so clearly. I spent so much time in that room. After Robert, her voice trailed off. Then, a new note of terror, colder than before. If Mr. Collins bought the house 3 years ago from Robert's estate, and Robert died, then when did I die? The question hung in the air, chilling me to the bone. I had no answer. My dispatcher's manual had no protocol for this. I don't feel anything, she whispered, her voice sounding distant now, frayed. It's like I'm fading. I can't see the room clearly anymore. It's cold. Eleanor? Eleanor, stay with me. Can you tell me anything else? Can you describe what you see around you now? My professional instincts were useless, grasping at straws. Her voice was barely a breath. Just dark and wind, so much wind. Then a click. The line went dead. Eleanor. I yelled into the receiver. Eleanor. Static. My hand was shaking as I hit the redial button for the incoming number. It rang. Once. Twice. Then it connected. But there was no voice. Just a sound. A faint, hollow, whistling sound, like wind blowing through a cracked window pane, or across the mouth of an empty bottle. It was a sound I'd heard before, sometimes on bad connections, but this was different. This felt empty, desolate. I listened for a full minute, my heart pounding, a cold sweat on my brow. The sound didn't change, just that soft, sighing wind. I hung up. The officers were dealing with Collins, getting medics for Leo. The immediate crisis was over. The boy was safe. That's what mattered. That's what I told myself. But Eleanor. I ran the number through our system again. It was a landline, registered to 1427 Hawthorne Lane. It had been for over 20 years. Registered to Robert and Eleanor Vance. It was probably disconnected after the estate sale, but somehow she had called from it. Or through it. The report I filed was complex. I focused on the tangible, the call, the child endangerment, the successful rescue. I omitted the parts about Eleanor's apparent non-existence, her dawning realization. Who would believe it? They'd send me for psych eval. Maybe I should go, but I know what I heard. I know how real her fear was. And I know that, whatever she was, she saved that little boy's life. She reached across, whatever barrier separates us from whatever she is, and she made us listen. I still work the midnight shift. The calls still come in. But now, sometimes, when there's a strange silence on the line, or a whisper I can't quite make out, I feel a different kind of chill. I think of Eleanor Vance, and the hollow wind on the other end of the line. Story 27. Saved a man's life. His wife yelled at me for touching him. Yep, you read that right. I was visiting a nature reserve in Croatia when I was 17-18 years old, and there was a big lake/river mouth thing where people swam. This 40 to 50-year-old man had swam way too far down and got himself caught in a current. He was shouting for help as it was clear he couldn't swim well, but no one but me was hearing him. I'm a really strong swimmer, and it felt like if I went to go get professional help he'd have already been at risk of drowning. So I swam over, grabbed him arm, managed to aim and guide us over to the side of river where we could grab and hold on to some branches. I then guided us up the river against the current by pulling ourselves along the plants. Got to the bank and he was so thankful, but couldn't speak too much English and I spoke no Croatian. I shook his hand and was just heading away when his wife came over and started yelling at me. She said I had No right to touch her husband in the water like that, and call me a whore, then dragged him away. To this day, it's one of the maddest things that's ever happened to me. Maybe she was betting on a life insurance payout? Story 28. My wife's been texting me all day. She died in a car crash this morning. She was on her way to work, just like any other Tuesday. She kissed me goodbye, said, "See you tonight," and left. 40 minutes later, I got the call. Drunk driver. Heat-in collision. She died on impact. I don't remember much after that. Just sitting on the kitchen floor, staring at nothing. Then, her name popped up on my phone. "Hey, want me to grab coffee for you?" I thought it was a delayed message. Denial is a powerful thing. But then another came in. "Traffic's bad. Might be a little late. Love you." I didn't respond. Couldn't. But the messages kept coming. All day. Normal stuff. Like she was just living her day. Client bailed on the meeting. Ugh. Thinking pasta for dinner? Do you ever think about that night in Vermont? That last one stopped me cold. Vermont was where we had our honeymoon. And something happened there. Something no one else knows. One night, we were hiking and got lost. We found an abandoned cabin and broke in to wait out the storm. In the morning, something had followed us back to the trail. It never spoke, just watched. A shape in the trees. We never talked about it again. Now, 15 years later, she texts me. "It followed me. I think it's here." I called her number. It rang twice, then clicked to voicemail. Her voice. Happy. Alive. "Hey, it's me. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Then a second voice, barely audible under hers. "He can hear us now." Story 29. My girlfriend's family turned out to be a cult, and I don't know how to process this. Okay, I need to vent because my life has turned into a Lifetime movie, and I don't know what to do. I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend, Sarah, 26F, for about a year. She's sweet, funny, and incredibly close with her family. Like, incredibly close. At first, I thought it was cute. She'd call her mom every day, visit her siblings every weekend, and always talked about how important family values were to her. But then, I started noticing some red flags. For one, her family was obsessed with their traditions. Every time I visited, there was some weird ritual, like group meditations, chanting, or these long, cryptic speeches led by her dad, who they called the guide. At first, I brushed it off as just a quirky family thing, but it kept getting weirder. Sarah started pressuring me to join in. She'd say things like, "If you really love me, you'll embrace my family's way of life." I tried to play along to make her happy, but it felt off. Like, they'd ask me personal questions about my finances, my career goals, and even my relationships with my own family. When I hesitated to answer, Sarah would get upset and say I wasn't committed to her. The breaking point came last month. Sarah invited me to a family retreat in the mountains. I thought it would be a fun weekend getaway, but it was nothing like I expected. The retreat was basically an indoctrination camp. They had these intense sessions where they'd talk about shedding your old self and devoting your life to the collective. They even asked me to sign some kind of pledge, promising to align my energy with theirs. I noped out of there as fast as I could. When I confronted Sarah about it, she broke down and admitted the truth. Her family isn't just a family, it's a cult. They've been recruiting people for years, and she'd been trying to bring me into it because she loves me and wants me to be part of her future. I was devastated. I told her I couldn't be part of something like that, and she got angry, saying I was abandoning her and failing the test of loyalty. We haven't spoken since. I don't know what to do. I care about her, but I can't ignore the fact that she was trying to pull me into a cult. Has anyone been through something like this? How do you even process this kind of betrayal? Story 30. My grumpy neighbor changed my life. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Mr. Daniels. He was the old war vet who kept to himself, except when he was barking at kids for riding bikes too close to his driveway. Rumor had it he'd fought in Vietnam, but no one knew for sure because no one dared to ask. His yard was immaculate, his flag always perfectly folded at night, and his expression could curdle milk. I'd lived next door to him for years, but had only spoken to him twice, both times ending with me apologizing for something trivial, like my garbage can tipping over into his yard. One afternoon, I was sitting on my porch scrolling through job listings, feeling sorry for myself. I'd just been laid off, my savings were drying up, and I had no clue what to do next. That's when I heard his voice. "You're staring at that phone like it owes you money." Startled, I looked up. Mr. Daniels was standing at the edge of his lawn, arms crossed, his sharp eyes boring into me. Just looking for a job," I said, trying to avoid eye contact. He walked over slowly, his cane tapping against the pavement like a metronome of judgment. When he got close enough, he didn't bother lowering his voice. "You're not looking for a job. You're looking for a reason to feel sorry for yourself." I froze, not sure whether to be offended or embarrassed. Before I could respond, he plopped down on my porch step like he owned the place. "You think this is hard?" he said, gesturing at my phone. "Try crawling through a jungle with no water while someone's shooting at you. Try losing your best friend because you zigged when he zagged. Then tell me your life's hard." I stared at him, unsure if I should nod or cry. He didn't wait for me to decide. "Let me guess," he continued. "You don't know what you want to do, so you're just throwing crap at the wall, hoping something sticks. Am I right?" Kinda," I admitted. "Kinda," he barked, raising an eyebrow. "Kid, life doesn't give a damn about kinda. You want something? Go get it. You screw up? Own it. Nobody's handing you a free pass because you're having a rough week." I sat there, stunned. He sighed, like he was already annoyed with me. "Here's the deal," he said, leaning in. "Every day you waste feeling sorry for yourself is a day you're stealing from your future. You don't have to know everything right now, but you sure as hell better start moving. And stop worrying about failing. You're going to fail. That's how you learn. You fall, you get up. End of story." Then he stood up, dusted off his pants, and looked at me like he was about to give me one last test. "You got a pen?" Yeah." I scrambled to grab one. He pointed to the notepad I had on the table. "Write down 3 things you can do today to move forward. I don't care if it's applying to a job, learning a skill, or even cleaning your damn house. Just do something. Because sitting here whining isn't an option." I wrote down 3 things: apply to 1 job, update my resume, and clean my kitchen. It was a disaster. When I looked up, he nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now do it," he said. "And if I see you out here tomorrow looking like a lost puppy, I'm gonna make you mow my lawn." Then he turned and walked back to his house without another word. It's been 6 months since that day. I don't know if it was the way he said it or the fact that he had zero tolerance for excuses, but his words lit a fire under me. I've got a new job now, a side hustle I'm excited about, and a much cleaner house. Every now and then, I catch Mr. Daniels watching me from his porch. He doesn't say much, but sometimes he'll give me a nod, and that's enough to keep me going. Story 31. A random person I met at work cured my shoulder pain. So years ago, I was suffering from really bad shoulder pain. I did not have a physically strenuous job, nor had I pulled anything. Several doctors I went to couldn't find any real reason for it, and simply recommended a change of lifestyle and painkillers. One day I was at work, a retail store, and my shoulder started acting up. I was just standing there massaging it, and this attracted the attention of a man who came over and started asking questions about it. He asked me how long I had experienced the pain, about my home life, and if I was dealing with any stress, and I don't know why, but I was compelled to answer him. Then he told me to stand still, close my eyes, and imagine the pain in my shoulder was a big red ball. And even though it felt really strange just doing something like that right there on the shop floor, he was a customer, and I couldn't really get in trouble for talking to him. So I thought, why not? I did as he said, and then he said I should visualize throwing the ball behind me and pulling it back, throwing it, then pulling it back. I did this several times, until he said I should imagine throwing that ball with all the force I had, so far behind me that I couldn't see it or feel it anymore, so far that I wouldn't be able to pull it back, so I did. Then he asked me if I could pull the ball back, and I actually had trouble visualizing doing so. Then he said that couldn't call the ball back because it was gone. Then he asked me how my shoulders felt, and I'm legit not kidding when I say that they felt so much better. He then laughed and said he normally charges for things like this, before walking away, leaving me completely dumbfounded. I never saw him again. It was like I was visited by some kind of chiropractic therapist fairy. This happened over 10 years ago, and the encounter is still one of the strangest, most bizarre, in a good way, things that have ever happened to me. Story 32. My stepdad crossed a line, and I finally told my mom. It changed everything. 19F, haven't shared this with many people, but after everything that's happened, I just need to get it out. For a little background, my mom left a really toxic and abusive marriage with my biological dad about a year ago. I was proud of her for finally walking away. She'd been through hell, and I was hoping this was the start of something better for both of us. Soon after, she met Jeff, 48M. He seemed stable, kind to her, and really supportive. They got serious pretty quickly, and before long, we were all living together. At first, I tried to give him a chance, but I never fully felt comfortable around him. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something about his energy just felt wrong. Over time, that feeling only got worse. I've always loved dancing. It's something I've done with my mom and sister since I was little. Fun, silly routines, stuff that made us laugh and bond. One of the dances we do as a joke kind of looks like twerking from behind. I never do this around guys, ever, and certainly not on purpose. It's something I only do when I'm with my sisters or mom and feel safe. A few weeks ago, I was dancing with my little sister while we cleaned. I thought we were alone, but apparently, Jeff had come in through the back door without me noticing. My sister stopped dancing suddenly, and I turned to see him standing there, just watching. I froze. I immediately stopped, and we both went quiet and tried to go back to cleaning. I felt exposed and creeped out, but I tried to brush it off. Until the next day, Jeff asked to speak with me privately. I didn't want to go, but I figured I'd get it over with. When we were alone, he looked at me completely deadpan and asked, "Why don't you dance like that in front of me?" I didn't say a word, just walked out, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I couldn't be there. I went straight to a friend's place and stayed there for the night. That wasn't even the first red flag. Another time, I was taking a shower and heard a knock. I yelled out that I was in there, thinking it was someone needing the bathroom. Then I saw the doorknob turn. Someone was trying to open it. Thankfully, it was locked. I yelled for them to stop, and I heard Jeff say through the door, "Why is the door locked?" Like that was a normal question to ask. That was my breaking point. I told my mom I couldn't live like this. I told her about both incidents and more. I told her I needed boundaries, or I would leave and go no contact. I didn't want to hurt her, but I needed to protect myself. I was so scared because she really loves this man, and I was terrified she'd choose him over me. But to her credit, she didn't. At first, she was in shock, but she believed me. She confronted him that same week. Nothing physical happened during that confrontation, but it was intense. The next thing I knew, she was filing for divorce. Papers served. Done. I'm currently staying at my grandma's house, and my little sister is with me too. She just loves grandma's place. We didn't share the full details with her yet, but we're safe. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like things are going to be okay. To anyone else out there who's been made to feel uncomfortable, ignored, or afraid in their own home, you're not dramatic. You're not overreacting. You deserve to feel safe. Story 33. Took me 20 years to realize my dad cheated on my mom with a neighbor, even though it was obvious. When I was a child around age 4 or 5, my parents got divorced. My dad moved into an apartment downtown. I remember the first time I was going to stay at my dad's for the night. About an hour after being dropped off, our neighbor from the house we lived in showed up, ended up making us dinner, and stayed the night. Being very young at the time, it never crossed my mind as being weird. She was a close neighbor. We would hang out with her 2 kids all the time back at the house. Only a week went by, and she had fully moved in with my dad. I recall them telling us the apartment office messed up and put us in the same unit, and because we know each other, we are just going to accept it for now. Again, young self didn't think anything of it. I guess those things happen. Years went by, and my dad and neighbor never admitted to dating or just didn't mention it. About 11 years later, they bought a house together. At this point, I was old enough to know they were dating, and eventually they did get married and had a kid together. It wasn't until I was about 24 that I told this story to a friend and went, "Wait a minute. Apartments don't screw up like that." And everything started to make sense. After asking my mom and stepmom, I found out both of them filed for divorce a week apart from the other. I think it's wild that my entire life it never occurred to me that that's what happened. But now looking back at it, I just laugh because of the excuse they tried to use about moving in together. Figures I'd share this story because it makes me laugh sometimes that I never noticed what happened. Story 34. My family hates me because I broke up with my fiancée before our wedding, but they don't know she cheated on me. I'm a 26M, and my fiancée, who we'll call Emily, fake name, is 24. We met at university and have been together since then. After 3 years in the relationship, I proposed, and she said yes. We had some issues that I don't want to discuss, which delayed the wedding for a whole year. A few weeks before the wedding, I got a disturbing call from one of our university friends. He told me that Emily and her friends were at a club without me knowing, and by chance, they ran into her ex. This ex was someone she always hated because he had manipulated and gaslighted her in the past. So, hearing that she was talking to him was hard to believe, until my friend sent me a picture of them together. I tried to stay calm and waited for her to answer my calls, but she never did. Frustrated, I then called one of her friends, who was drunk at the time. I asked her directly, "Where are Emily and her ex? Tell me now." She realized I knew what was going on, and she said I shouldn't worry because Emily just kissed him, not a big deal, and that I shouldn't be insecure about it. I hung up, went for a drive to clear my head, and decided that I didn't want to be with someone like that anymore. The next morning, I canceled the wedding immediately and broke up with her via text, then put my phone on airplane mode. I spent the next few days crying and trying to pull myself together. When I finally turned my phone back on, I discovered that Emily had painted me as the villain to my family. Even my dad called me a disappointment. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Should I tell them the truth and clear my name? Or do I let it go, knowing that my family doubted me without hearing the full story and is now bombing my phone with hateful messages? Story 35. A stripper duped me into some kind of a scheme. A little about me first. I am a fat, geeky, socially awkward man with poor social skills. I have few friends, and, of course, no wife or girlfriend. I am not rich, but my job pays me well enough to splurge every now and again. I have an unusual hobby. I perform stand-up comedy at local bars. So now, on to the story. One time I bombed at an open mic. To cheer myself up, I decided to go to a strip club. I pick a stripper, and, as she is giving me a lap dance, my dumb ass thinks I can impress this hot topless girl. So I tell her I do stand-up comedy, thinking it would impress her. She tells me she does stand-up comedy too, and that she regularly performs at an open mic at, insert location, on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. For the sake of the story, I'll call the location the Comedy Bar. I knew for a fact that the Comedy Bar had an open mic every Thursday at 7, but I've never been to it because it was inconvenient for me. So I couldn't verify whether or not this stripper actually went to this open mic. I thought she might be lying to me to get more money out of me. But then I thought she knew the location, day, and time of this open mic. So maybe she's telling the truth. Then my dumb ass told her, "Hey, let's meet up at this open mic." She agreed, and we exchanged phone numbers. The next Thursday, I left work early to get to this open mic. She wasn't there. At first I was pissed that she stood me up, but then I figured it wasn't a big deal. I signed up for this open mic, went up on stage, and actually did really well this time. I should have just gone home after that, but I was a fat guy who hadn't had dinner yet, and it was a long drive home, so I stuck around. Then the stripper texted me saying that her friend's band was playing at 9 o'clock at a place I'll call the Music Bar. The Music Bar is a live music bar in my area where local bands play. It was located literally a few doors down from the Comedy Bar. We agreed to meet up beforehand, so I hung around for a while waiting for her. This time she showed up, and, being a fat guy who hasn't had dinner yet, I asked her if she was hungry. She said yes, and suggested we walk to a pizza place that was a few blocks away. I said, "Why don't we eat at this Indian restaurant right in front of us?" She resisted first, but eventually agreed, so we were sitting at this Indian restaurant, eating tasty Indian food and having a pleasant conversation. She kept texting somebody, but I was a fat, socially inept guy, and I was stoked that I was having dinner with this hot girl. So I didn't really pay attention to her texting. And then, all of a sudden, a man walked into the restaurant, ignored the host and everyone else, and walked straight to our table. Without saying a single word to me, she got up and walked out, leaving her food unfinished. I thought this was weird, of course, but, being a fat guy, the first thing I did was finish my meal. I should have driven straight home after that, but my dumbass thought, I wonder what her friend's band sounds like. So I walked a few doors down to the music bar and paid $10 for my ticket. Literally as soon as I walked through the door, there was that same man standing right there. He said to me, "Man, she ain't your bitch. You better stay away from her." At this point, I wanted nothing more to do with this girl. So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll stay away from her. Man, you better stay away from her." And with that, I walked out of this bar and drove home. I never went back to that strip club again. And the stripper had the nerve to use my phone number after that to text me, "Hey baby, I'm working tonight. Don't you want to come see me?" Obviously, I blocked her number after that. Story 36. Wholesome interaction at the bar. My coworker recently went through a breakup and has been feeling pretty low. So last night, I went out with him to the bars to be his wingman. Basically, my job was just to chat with the friends of any girl he was interested in. Nothing more. I'm engaged, and my fiancée was fine with it as long as I kept my location on and stayed responsive to texts. Toward the end of the night, just as we were about to leave, two girls approached us, each clearly targeting one of us. We started chatting, and the girl talking to my friend seemed super into him. She was wearing a cowboy hat and ended up giving it to him, which was funny. The girl I was talking to was really nice, but from the way she spoke, it was almost like she was using a customer service voice. It felt like she was just being polite. What was odd, though, was that every time I tried to step away, since my friend seemed to be holding his own, she kept pulling me back into the conversation. Then I had a thought. What if she was also wingmaning for her friend and was worried that if I bailed, my buddy would follow? So finally, I just asked, "Are you wingmaning tonight?" She seemed surprised and said, "What?" Then I just said, "I'm wingmaning for my friend. I'm actually engaged." Her face lit up, and, for the first time all night, she genuinely laughed and said, "Oh my God, yes. I'm married." After that, the conversation totally shifted. She relaxed, dropped the polite tone, and we ended up having a great chat with a lot in common. We shared the same birthday, were the same age, and a few other things. Unfortunately, my friend didn't get much further with the girl as his anxiety and self-doubt kinda held him back, but I could tell he enjoyed the interaction and maybe walked away with a little more confidence. Plus, he got a free cowboy hat out of it. Not the wildest story, but it ended up being a pretty funny and wholesome night. Story 37. My partner proposed to me in a Starbucks, and now my parents are furious. I'm reaching out because I need some perspective on a situation that's been causing a lot of tension in my life lately. My partner, Alex, and I have been together for 5 wonderful years, and we've been talking about getting engaged for a while. When the moment finally came, it was everything we had hoped for, except for one major problem. Our parents are absolutely livid about it. Here's the backstory. Alex and I aren't exactly the grand gesture type. We're both pretty introverted and prefer simple, meaningful experiences over flashy displays. So, when Alex decided to propose, they chose a place that holds a lot of sentimental value for us. The Starbucks where we had our first date. It's our favorite coffee spot, and it felt like the perfect, intimate setting. On the day of the proposal, Alex planned it beautifully. We went to Starbucks, ordered our usual drinks, and when our names were called, Alex got down on one knee and proposed right there in the corner where we first met. It was personal, heartfelt, and exactly what we both wanted. Here's where things took a turn. Our families were not impressed. At all. My parents were initially excited for us, but were horrified when they found out about the proposal location. They think it's tacky and that we missed out on a chance for a more memorable and traditional experience. Alex's parents are even more upset, claiming that we didn't give the occasion the gravity it deserved. They've been giving us the cold shoulder and are insisting we redo the proposal if we want their blessing. Now we're caught in a tough spot. Do we stick to our original, personal choice and accept that our parents might never understand? Or do we consider having a redo just to make them happy, even though it feels like it would go against everything we wanted? I'm genuinely torn. I want to honor our relationship and what feels right for us, but I also don't want to keep creating conflict with our families. What do you all think? Should we hold firm to our decision and embrace our unique proposal, or should we give in to family expectations and put on a show for their sake? Looking forward to your thoughts and advice. Alex proposed to me in a Starbucks because it was special to us. Our parents think it's tacky and want us to redo it. Should we stay true to our choice or give in to their demands? Story 38. A little boy got a haircut and now I'm crying. So, I am a teacher in a Title I K-5 school. The vast majority of our students live below the poverty line and a percentage of them are homeless. I don't want to share too much personal info, but one of these students, I'll call him David, is about 5 and has faced major challenges. Life is cruel sometimes. Whatever you're picturing is probably not too far from the truth of the matter. Our security guard has a friend who is a barber, and he came in today to give haircuts to our kiddos experiencing homelessness. Parent permission was given. I didn't get to see all the kids, but I happened to be in the teacher's lounge when David was getting his haircut, and my gosh. You guys, it was such a beautiful experience. The principal was holding his hand and telling him how handsome he was going to look, and the barber was so patient with him. The barber actually gave David a cut that he picked himself and styled it for him afterward. When David was done, he immediately ran to the mirror to admire himself. Everyone in the office was gushing about how nice his haircut was, and this precious little soul who is usually crying or angry was absolutely glowing with joy. The barber even left gel and a comb and showed our secretary how to style it, so he can have it nice every day. The whole moment was just so beautiful and made me feel like I truly am surrounded by people who just want to improve the lives of children. And that's just not something I feel every day. Just wanted to share this little sunbeam with you all. Story 39. I was raided and arrested by the DEA. I was months away from turning 21, living by myself in a rental house located in the Midwest. Started off as a typical weekday in the summer. I was out back mowing my lawn with my headphones in, shirtless, wearing these stupid Ed Hardy shorts. Something catches my eye at the house, as I look over to see a single person coming toward me with a gun pointed and a bulletproof vest on. Outside of that, he had normal street clothes on. I'll never forget my first thought. Is this some kind of prank or joke? Only a second of that thought before reality stepped in. I removed my headphones to hear him yelling to step away from the mower and get on the ground. I complied as he came up and put me in cuffs. He says some police jargon into his microphone, and I see 2 more officers dressed like him come around the side of my house and set up at the back door. The officer asks me if anyone else is in the home. I reply, no, I'm the only one here. The 2 other officers then enter the back door of the house. A few minutes of smelling the freshly mowed grass my face was planted in, and the officer brings me inside, where over a dozen undercover officers are going through every inch of my home. Not the rip your couch open type of search you see in movies, but they definitely looked in every area accessible. In the basement of my home, they would find 30 mature hydroponic cannabis plants. Another dozen or so clones/mother plants. In the freezer, they find 2 pounds of packaged weed. They ask me where the other grow houses are at, which I truthfully reply, this is the only one. There are no other houses. They quickly realize I'm not the major manufacturer they thought I was, and they decided to hand me over to the state. As we go to the front yard for them to bring me downtown, over 8 vehicles are in my driveway/front lawn. Not a single one a marked police vehicle. They hand me over to the state with a felony for manufacturing and another felony for possession with intent to sell. I get to jail to be processed in those dumb Ed Hardy shorts, bailed out 24 hours later. I get accepted into the drug court program. I go through a year of drug court and have all charges dismissed. The day I was arrested was the last day I illegally sold drugs. I got into the trades right after my charges were dropped and have been on the same path ever since, 10 plus years later. It was one of the biggest life lessons I ever learned, and I'm truly thankful for a program that gives first-time offenders a second chance. Without it, my juvenile choices could have followed me for life and brought me down a much more difficult path. Story 40. I'm a man who is going to court today around 9 a.m. to get a stalking protection order against some random guy that targeted me and my house. This guy started targeting my house along with his girlfriend, and I have no idea who they are or why they're targeting me. It started about 2 weeks ago. He just started to drive his old truck and rev it really loud next to my bedroom at random times for the last week or two. He revved it so loud it would backfire. Then he would drive off the same direction he came. My security cameras caught them doing this, so I turned them into police. I finally had my chance to ID them when I was awakened at 10:30 p.m. by the truck. I ran outside as fast as I woke up and found them parked down the street in front of an apartment. I confronted them and got video of the entire confrontation. The girlfriend told me to take my psychological medication and called the police on me. I have the police report. They lied to the police, but I finally got their ID. A couple days later, while I'm waiting on a corner for my daughter's bus to show up, the guy walks up the street towards me with his phone in hand harassing me. I started to record, ask questions. He simply tried to intimidate me and said he didn't owe me any explanations. I told him to stay away from me, my house and family. He said he can walk past my house anytime he wants. It's a public sidewalk. He then left toward the direction of my house. My security cameras alerted me, and he was there walking around my house, filming it with his phone. Then he walks away down the road. I got my daughter from the bus and got home. Later, I walked my dog. I'm taking a normal, familiar route. The man is parked down the street from my house, standing at his truck. It's the same truck he has harassed me with previously that I have documented. He sees me and starts to accost and harass me more. He follows me. He won't leave me alone. I tell him to stop. I tell him to leave me alone. I literally had to walk into a bar. He told me, I can go into the bar too, and follows me in. I scream for help. I scream for someone to call 911. They kicked him out after some back and forth. I wait while they call police. He finally started walking away. I ran the other direction home. He was about a block from my house when I ran past him. I yelled for him to stay away. My security camera caught all that, and I was filming. So I filed another police report and went down to the court to file a protection order. I submitted it yesterday. Today I go see the judge to see if they're going to authorize temporary protection. Then the guy will have a chance to contest it, but I will show the videos in court. I added some screen captures from my videos update. 9:19 a.m. I'm in the lobby at the courthouse. I was granted the temporary stalking order against the guy. I'm waiting for the next process. I'll update more soon. Update. 9:52 a.m. Here is the protection order. It now has to be served. We're working on that. His truck was around the corner when I went to court. It is still there now that we are back. We are trying to have an OCPD officer serve the 911 copy since we don't have the girlfriend actual apt hashtag. I'll keep you all updated. Update. 12:03 p.m. We couldn't get the sheriff to serve because we didn't know the apt hashtag. We did a few other errands and eventually got in contact with local OCPD. I was given a 911 copy in case the guy was around and police could serve him. His truck was gone by the time we had OCPD over there. But I was able to find out that his address is the same as the girlfriend, and we were given an actual apartment hashtag. So we went back to the courthouse, and we are having him served. They will try once today, and then again Monday. During the weekend, if his truck is there, I can call OCPD and have him swerved. I'll keep you all updated. Update. 3:47 p.m. He was served. Except he wasn't. We just got a call from the sheriff. He attempted to serve the papers, and the guy was home. They lied about his name on the police report. So the name isn't correct, but the guy was. Now I have to call OCPD to get the real name and redo the restraining order. I'll keep you all updated, but it will be a new post tomorrow or Monday unless something else happens. Update. For 37 p.m., final update for the day. We found out the name we were given is a middle name, but proper last name. We found out his full real. I'm going to file a motion to amend the stalking order, and it will be served most likely Monday. Story 41. My wife is a walking disaster, so, last weekend, I had to go out of town for a work conference. My wife assured me that she could handle everything at home for 3 days without issue. She is a fully grown adult, after all. I was a fool to believe this. Day 1. I get a text that says, "How do you turn the smoke alarm off?" No context. No follow-up. Just that. Turns out, she tried to meal prep by baking an entire week's worth of chicken at once, on broil. The kitchen filled with smoke. The dog panicked and knocked over a potted plant. And instead of opening windows, she just waved a towel at the alarm like some kind of smoke-wielding wizard. Day 2. She locked herself out of the house while taking out the trash, without her phone, shoes, or keys. Instead of going to a neighbor for help like a normal person, she scaled the backyard fence and attempted to climb through the dog door. The dog, confused and probably traumatized, barked at her like she was a burglar. She got stuck halfway and had to wait until the neighbors saw her legs dangling and helped yank her through. Day 3. I get home, and the house smells like burnt something. I open the oven to find a completely blackened frozen pizza. She looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Then she goes back to watching TV like she didn't almost burn down the house again. I love her, but she is a hazard to herself and everyone around her. Story 42. I, 21 female, saved a man's life yesterday. So yeah, I kinda have nobody to tell, so I wanted to tell it here. Yesterday after work, I went to the gas station with my coworker, and I look over and see this guy's limp body being dragged by a man in a pink shirt. Shortly after, I see pink shirt doing compressions, so I call 911. After giving them all the details, they tell me to see if there's a defibrillator, then told me to check if pink shirt needs CPR instructions. I went straight to pink shirt giving CPR, and I said, "I'm on the phone with 911, do you need CPR instructions?" He said, "Please, do you know how?" I don't know what I'm doing, so I took over. I have never seen someone not breathing before, and I saw him turning purple. As I was doing compressions, I was literally just singing the Staying Alive song in my head. The 911 operator said to give a breath, and pink shirt did, and I saw him take a big breath, and I felt his pulse come back. The operator said to keep his airway open and wait for the fire department. I tried to get him to wake up, and he wouldn't, but I could see him trying to. Mind you, I have very small CPR training from some videos I watched over summer break in middle school, and a sports medicine class I took my junior year of high school, where I did CPR on a dummy. I felt worried for him, and to say I was calm is a complete lie. I guess I was the least unprepared person there. I was just so happy he was breathing, and I hope he's okay. TLDR, learn CPR, at least the basics. It could quite literally save someone's life. You never know what's going to happen around you. Edit. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for their kind words, and especially for the service of all those in the emergency response field. I appreciate your support, and it's nice to hear your stories. Thanks, guys. Story 43. I just found a wad of cash in my wife's sock drawer. I'm having a semi-detached, amused reaction to this discovery. For full disclosure, we have a wonderful marriage, no current problems, and I am not in the habit of snooping. This is the first time I've opened one of her dresser drawers in like 10 years. We talk about our finances freely, and we meet once a week to pay bills and investment plan / cash flow together. It is the most enjoyable part of our week in many ways. She will sometimes buy bulk candy by the bag and leave one bag out on the kitchen island and hide the rest in a cabinet above the washer / dryer. This is hardly a true hiding place because it is not a secret. It's more of an out-of-the-way place. A few weeks ago, as we were unloading groceries, I saw she bought a bag of Reese's peanut butter cups. I never saw the bag again, and after checking in the pantry above the washer / dryer, not there, I asked her what happened to them. She replied that she had a new hiding place and that I'd never find it. I joked that I could always find hidden chocolate, but in reality, I never bothered looking for her stash. Weeks pass, and today she randomly out of the blue tossed me a fun-sized Nestle Crunch. I asked her where that came from, and she said it was from her secret place. I noticed she had just came out of our bedroom, so I guessed it was somewhere there. I thought of the classic Sherlock Holmes hiding in plain sight bit, and opened her sock drawer thinking that it couldn't be so obvious. No candy, but I found a stack of mostly hundreds of dollars and $50s totaling $1,500. I had no idea that money was there, and I think I know where it came from, but I'm not sure. Lots of family over today, so I won't get to ask her about it until tonight or tomorrow. Kinda weird, right? Story 44. millionaire gave me $52,000. I had been living on Miami Beach for a few months, right by Ocean Drive. I found a spot where chairs had been stacked and forgotten, so I carved a cave no one found for some time. I took to the beach in the area and met a street artist named Cocaine Cowboy, who introduced me to his sponsor, Brian. Brian was a wealth manager from Manhattan who lived in Jersey. He had just made some gray area moves to become a high net worth individual. He had decided to become a stoner and purchase a weed farm, purchase a movie theater, sponsor golfers, and travel the U.S. He liked my free spirit as well as my skill set in arts management from a previous career. He offered me a gig as his personal assistant, basically on the operations side of his new set of ventures. I would also do some mannying for his family. After living on the beach with sand in my hair and South Beach sunrises every morning, I was, overnight, offered $52,000 salary up front and a friendship with Brian that would be like a modern Tom Sawyer story. One of his clients was his brother, who was much more wealthy than him, and said Brian was a victim of his own success. That infuriated Brian, but I would later come to agree with the sentiment. Brian was so passionate he was talking to everyone: homeless, wealthy, workers, volunteers, clergy, etc. He was hiring people left and right and bleeding money. He wanted to take a private jet for the first time, so he flew me and his favorite golfers to South Carolina. A group of us flew to California one time so he could buy a weed farm. He put together a team to renovate his movie theater. We raced from Miami to Jersey, him in an Audi, me in a BMW. He had me close to him through it all, and so I got a very interesting perspective. He wanted my life of freedom and self-expression. He always remembered me on the beaches with flowers in my hair. I told him I would Freaky Friday anytime and take the $7 million bonus. He did not like the restrictions of a conservative world, and it drove him to some wild places. After 9 months of knowing Brian, I got a call that he had ended his life. That was the end of his wild adventures. Money did not bring happiness, and I decided finance is not for me. Story 45. My Karen boss tried to have intimacy with me, so I reported and got her fired. This is a bit of a wild one, but here we go. I, 25M, used to work at a mid-sized company in an administrative role. My boss, Karen, 40SF, not her real name, was a textbook example of entitlement. She loved to micromanage, take credit for everyone's work, and throw tantrums if things didn't go her way. At first, I figured she was just difficult, but things took a turn when she started making inappropriate comments about my appearance. She'd say things like, "You clean up well," or "It's nice to have some eye candy around here." I brushed it off as awkward attempts at humor, but then it escalated. Karen started finding excuses to be alone with me in her office. She'd accidentally brush up against me or place her hand on my arm for way too long. One day, she cornered me in the break room and straight up said, "You know, if you played your cards right, you could get a promotion and maybe a little more." I was shocked. I tried to laugh it off and told her I wasn't interested, but she didn't back down. Over the next few weeks, her behavior became more aggressive. She'd text me late at night, send me suggestive emails, and even threaten to make my life very difficult if I didn't reciprocate. At this point, I knew I had to act. I started documenting everything: texts, emails, and even recorded a few of our interactions. In my state, it's legal to record conversations without the other party's consent. I also confided in a trusted coworker who had witnessed some of Karen's behavior and agreed to back me up. When I felt I had enough evidence, I went straight to HR. I laid everything out, including the recordings, and made it clear I wasn't comfortable working under Karen anymore. To their credit, HR took the complaint seriously. They launched an investigation and placed Karen on leave during the process. A few weeks later, I was called into a meeting where HR informed me that Karen had been terminated. They apologized for what I had gone through and even offered me a transfer to a different department with a pay bump as a goodwill gesture. The fallout was messy. Karen apparently tried to sue the company for wrongful termination, but with all the evidence I provided, her case didn't go anywhere. As for me, I'm still at the company and enjoying my new role. It was a stressful experience, but I'm glad I stood up for myself. No job is worth putting up with that kind of behavior. What do you think, Reddit? Have you ever dealt with something like this? Story 46. I told my little brother I was proud of him, and he cried. My little brother's 14. Quiet kid. Always in his room. Never really talks unless it's about anime or football. He's never been top of the class, never been picked first for anything. A few weeks ago, I noticed he was drawing a lot. Like, a lot. Pages everywhere. At first, I didn't say anything. But then I looked closer, they were good. Like proper manga-style sketches with emotion and shading. I walked in his room the other day while he was drawing. I just said, "You're seriously talented, you know. I'm proud of you." He didn't say anything. Just stared at me like he didn't believe it. Then his eyes went glassy. And he said, "No one's ever said that to me before." Bro, that hit different. All I'm saying is, if you've got someone in your life doing something cool, even if it's small, tell them you see them. You never know what it means. Story 47. I asked an old man why he smiled every morning. His answer shook me. There's this small public garden near my place where I've been going for morning walks lately. Quiet, peaceful, nothing special, just birds, trees, and a dirt path. I usually keep my headphones in and mind my own business. But I kept noticing this one old man. He was always there. Every morning alone. Walking slowly or just sitting on the same bench. But always smiling. Not forced, just content. After seeing him for like 2 weeks straight, I randomly decided to talk to him. I walked up and said, "Hey, I see you here every day. You seem really peaceful." He smiled and said, "I've been coming here since I was a boy. My friends and I used to play here all the time. It was our spot. We used to laugh, joke, dream about life, just be stupid together. It meant everything to us." He paused for a second, then continued. Over time, life happened. They got busy. Some moved away. Some just stopped coming. And now, most of them aren't here anymore. I didn't know what to say, but he smiled again and said, "Still, I come here. I walk. I sit. I remember. I feel like when I'm here, they're still around in some way. In the breeze, in the trees, in the sun. This place holds all the moments we had. And I just try to relive them quietly." Then he looked at the sky and said something I'll never forget. The sun doesn't fall. The moon doesn't die. The world goes on. And so do we. I honestly don't know why that line hit me so hard. I've been stressing a lot lately about work, life, future plans, comparing myself to others. That one small conversation with a stranger made me stop for a second and just breathe. He wasn't trying to teach me a lesson. He was just sharing a piece of his life. But it stuck with me. Still does. Since that day, I've been trying to slow down a bit. Enjoy little moments more. Worry a bit less. Because in the end, it's not the big things we remember, it's those quiet, silly, beautiful times that become everything. Story 48. My apartment had a hidden door. I wish I never opened it. I moved into this apartment 6 months ago. It's old, built in the 40s, but cheap. And in a city where rent is insane, that's all that mattered. The place had character, creaky floors, doors that didn't quite shut all the way, and the occasional weird noise at night. Nothing out of the ordinary for an old building. Then I found the hidden door. I was rearranging my bedroom last weekend, trying to shove my dresser against a different wall, when I noticed something strange, a seam in the wall that shouldn't have been there. The more I looked at it, the more I realized it wasn't just a crack in the plaster, it was the outline of a door. I knocked. It sounded hollow. For a second, I debated calling my landlord. But curiosity won. I grabbed a screwdriver and started prying along the edges. The paint chipped away easily, revealing an old wooden frame. Eventually, with enough effort, the door popped open. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. My apartment is on the first floor. There shouldn't be any stairs leading down. At this point, any rational person would have called someone, police, the landlord, anyone. But I've seen enough horror movies to know how this goes. I needed to see for myself. So I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with dust and something else, something rotting. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended, and at the bottom, I found a small, windowless room. The walls were covered in faded, peeling wallpaper. There was a single wooden chair in the center, facing the far wall. And on that wall? Photographs. Dozens of them. Some black and white, some faded Polaroids, all pinned in a perfect grid. I stepped closer, holding my light up to get a better look. My stomach dropped. The photos were of people, dozens of them, all staring directly into the camera. Some were smiling. Others looked terrified. And then I saw the last row. They were all photos of me. Sleeping. Sitting at my desk. Leaving for work. I don't remember much after that. Just running, sprinting up the stairs, shoving the hidden doors shut, and moving my dresser back in front of it. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called my landlord, pretending I had a maintenance issue in my bedroom. When he showed up, I watched his face closely as he inspected the wall. "There's no door here," he said, running his hand over the smooth paint. I felt sick. I shoved the dresser aside and pointed. Right there. There was a door. A staircase. A room. He frowned. "I don't know what you're talking about." And he didn't. Because the door was gone. No seam, no outline. Just solid, unbroken wall. I moved out that day. Left everything behind except my phone and wallet. But last night, I got a text. No number. No message. Just a single image. A photo of me sleeping in my new apartment. Story 49. I witnessed one of the saddest first dates when I was in Vegas. This happened 10 years ago. I was visiting Vegas with a friend. We decided last minute to go to P.F. Chang's on a Friday night. It was slammed. We had to wait almost an hour to be seated, and when we finally were, we were placed in an area that had a long bench along a wall with multiple tables and chairs on the other side of those tables. I was sitting on the bench side next to a rather large person that was already eating, and I was on the side of their arm they were using, so I had to scoot further to my right. I was basically rubbing elbows with a very attractive and well-dressed young woman. Opposite her was her date, a very nervous young man that was trying desperately to make conversation. They both had their food already, and she hadn't even touched her plate and was looking at her phone. Her date either had a stutter or was so nervous he kept stammering and attempting to bring up anything only to be met with absolutely nothing but silence from her. Eventually, I decide to kind of peer over at her phone right as she's ordering herself an Uber. She gets up without saying a word and leaves. As she walked past him, he asked if she was going to the restroom, and she still says nothing. The hurt I saw in this man's eyes. I could tell he was hoping she was maybe going to the bathroom and would come back, but as the minutes ticked by, the embarrassment crept in. He looked around nervously for a server so he could pay, and that's when I noticed he was fighting back tears. His face was red and his hands were shaking when he got his wallet out. As an observer, it felt like a millennia for the server to come back with his card. He struggled to put his card in his wallet and eventually gave up, just shoving both in his pocket and left. We saw a Chris Angel show afterwards, and it was very underwhelming. Story 50. I had the strangest, I died and saw the afterlife experience. I had my second heart attack at 26, a few weeks after my first heart attack. They implanted a pacemaker/defibrillator after the first one. During this second attack, I was dead for about 4.5 minutes before my device finally brought me back. This is what I saw. I went through some dark tunnels and wound up in an empty white void. I was lying in a hospital bed in a hospital gown. Surrounding my hospital bed was a Backstreet Boys tribute band in those all-white suits, singing. They were singing "I Want It That Way," but they were very out of tune. Finally, my device restarted my heart, and I came to, gasping for air and laughing at what I had just seen. It's funny to think that no matter how family-oriented a person I am, it's not my dead relatives waiting on the other side for me, but a 2000s boy band tribute band that needs more practice. Story 51. My coworkers set me up on a blind date. It went well, but they're acting weird about it. I, 34M, separated from my wife in early 2023 and divorced in early 2024. It was a pretty nasty breakup, and I moved to Chicago for a job to get away. I pretty much kept to myself at first, but was friendly with a couple coworkers, John 26M and Mark 26M. They were younger than me, but it was easier to bond with them as we were the only single guys in the office. We really hit it off this summer and hung out weekly, went to the Pitchfork Festival together, and really started to click. I really felt like I was coming out of my shell. A month ago, they were talking about their dating experiences and asked me about mine. I admitted I hadn't been on a date since my wife, and they both kind of shut up and looked awkward. The next night we were out for drinks, and they mentioned that they wanted to set me up with a friend of theirs, Sarah 26F. Mark showed me a picture of her on his phone, and I thought she was cute and said okay. They both looked at each other with a weird smirk on their faces but agreed to set it up. I thought I knew what the look was about. She was a bigger girl and I'm a bigger guy, so it made sense to them. But maybe they were unsure if they were being rude or not. I thought she was cute though, so didn't bother me and let it slip out of my mind. We set it up for the next weekend and I went. When I arrived at the restaurant, I spotted Sarah, waved and walked over, but it was weird. Sarah acted like she didn't know me and was here meeting someone else. I pulled out my phone and told her Mark had set up the date and showed her the text from him with her picture. She looked at the phone for a second and looked like she was going to cry. I quickly apologized and told her I would leave if she was uncomfortable. She paused for a second and then assured me we should continue the date. I'll be honest, the first 20 minutes I almost got up and left. She looked miserable. I have no idea what was going on, but she looked like she had just been told she was the worst person alive. I don't know what made me do it. I guess because it was going so poorly, I just lost any nerves I had and was much more confident than I had been at the beginning of the date. Or maybe I just wanted to cheer her up. She was wearing a beautiful top that really showed off her cleavage, so at one point when she was about to cry again, I just leaned in and said, "I think you are absolutely beautiful in that top. I'm sorry if I keep staring, but everything about this makes me happy to be here." She stared at me for a second, blushed, smiled, and actually became present for the date. We talked about her job, how she got to Chicago, how she had grown up with Mark and John. She mentioned she was trying to go through all the Criterion Collection films, and we bonded over a shared goal of seeing them all and a shared annoyance that they had new films faster than we can watch them. After dinner, we walked around downtown to the park and somehow stayed out until after midnight. I know because she was visibly upset about how to get home, so I offered my place that was within walking distance. Honestly, we didn't even have sex that night. We just talked and cuddled as we fell asleep. I told her about my divorce and how hurt I had been when I caught my wife, blah, blah, blah. I hadn't actually said it out loud, but Sarah just made me comfortable. We have been together ever since, and the relationship is better than it ever was with my wife. I know it's only been a month, but mark my words, I will marry this girl. But the reason I'm here is that Mark and John have been really weird about it. I asked Mark the next day why Sarah thought she was meeting someone else, and he just said that Sarah didn't want a picture and he must have described me poorly. But when I talked about Sarah that Monday, they both seemed off. They couldn't believe I had a good time, and John has been really annoyed. Whenever I bring her up, he leaves the room. They keep canceling on me too, mostly because I want to bring Sarah. We'll have plans, and then when I say I want to bring her, they will cancel. I think they might be jealous that I'm in a relationship. Not sure. I think I may bring this up with Sarah though and just see what's going on. The vibes have been super weird. Story 52. I thought it was a date. I was wrong. In my early 20s, I matched with a girl on a dating app. Let's call her Sarah. She was cute, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We texted for a week straight, and the chemistry was undeniable. Finally, she suggested we meet up for dinner. I was pumped. We met at a cozy little Italian place downtown. She looked even better in person, and the conversation flowed just as easily as it had over text. We laughed, shared stories, and even split a tiramisu for dessert. I was already imagining our second date. After dinner, she suggested we take a walk. There's a park nearby with this amazing view of the city, she said. I thought, perfect. Romantic. This is going great. We strolled through the park, and sure enough, the view was stunning. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and the air was crisp. She stopped at a bench and sat down, patting the spot next to her. I sat down, thinking, okay, here we go. This is the moment. But then she reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook. So, she said, flipping it open, I've been working on this screenplay, and I really need some feedback. You seem like a creative guy. Mind if I read you a few scenes? I blinked. Sure. For the next hour, she read me her screenplay. It was something. A dystopian thriller about sentient toasters taking over the world. I nodded along, trying to look interested, but inside I was screaming. When she finally finished, she looked at me expectantly. So, what do you think? I stammered out some generic praise, like, wow, Really unique concept. And you've got a great imagination." She beamed and said, "I knew you'd get it. Let's meet up again soon so I can read you the next act." I mumbled something noncommittal and made my escape as soon as I could. Needless to say, I didn't text her back. Turns out, she wasn't looking for a date, she was looking for a focus group. Story 53. My husband is no longer attracted to me after having a baby. What do you think, and what should I do? My husband is no longer attracted to me after having a baby. What do you think, and what should I do? Hey guys, I'm going to try and make this relatively short but very detailed. I need some serious non-biased opinions. My husband, 34, said he is repulsed by my tummy after having a baby. Yes, repulsed came out of his mouth. I, 25, had a baby almost 2 years ago. I'm 4 feet 11 inches and weighed 114 pounds when we met. After having a baby, I weigh 128 pounds. I still breastfeed, trying to wean the little one off. A little background on my health and current situation. Well, today I was super bloated. My husband got a glance at me with my shirt off. Changing into another shirt. He looked at me with the most disgusted look on his face. I looked at him slightly confused on why he was looking at me that way. I asked, "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" He replied, "Have you gained weight? How much do you weigh?" I kid you not, exact words. I tell him that I weigh 130 pounds that day, bloated. He then in return said, "You're lying. There is no way you gained that much weight in just a couple days." In utter shock, I didn't even know what to say. He proceeds to be displeased and irritated. I take the initiative to ask why he seemed so cold. His reply was, "I do not find your stomach attractive at all. You remind me of when I was 14, fat and chubby. It's repulsive." When I asked God for a wife, I was expecting her to have the same desires and body shape as me. Skinny and slender. He explained how yes, he understood that my stomach wouldn't be exactly how it was previously since becoming a mom, but he was expecting more weight to shed than what was. I asked deeper questions because this goes far beyond me. I asked him what the root cause of his demeaning and selfish wants were. He again replied with, "My mom and sister were fat. Mom was 400 plus pound and sister is 250 plus. He continues with, "I don't find even a slight amount of fat on any women to be attractive." I then explained how I'm only 15 pounds more than what I was, nothing extreme like that. Of course, this showed he has childhood trauma from overly weight family, but that still does not excuse his behavior. I still ask questions, not mad or belligerent, but surprisingly calm. I asked him would he cheat on me or divorce me if I stayed this exact same weight. His response, "I don't know how to feel about this." He says, "I will always be tempted by other women that have that physique, but I would never cheat on you. I care about my relationship with the Lord too much, but I will always desire more." Continuing, he says, "I also have scripture to back up why I want this body type, and that you should submit to my request." Any solid believer out there? Yeah, there's no scripture that says that. It just continues to him saying he will gradually be disappointed and want more. He kept getting extremely hostile and pissed. I ended the conversation with, "I would love you fat or skinny because I didn't marry you for what I could get, but because of who you are or who I thought you were." Thoughts? Story 54. My neighbor's apartment was sealed for over 20 years. Last Friday, they opened it. I wish they hadn't. I won't give my name or the city. Let's just say it's an old, working-class neighborhood in a city that's seen better days. The kind with old brick buildings crammed together, streets barely wide enough for one car to squeeze through. I'd lived in this particular building pretty much my whole life, or at least as long as I can remember. It was an old walk-up, definitely older than me, older than my dad. Cracked plaster, stairs worn unevenly, lights that flickered on their own schedule, and water pressure that was more of a suggestion than a guarantee. Standard stuff for the area. The building had its quirks, things we'd all gotten used to. You'd hear odd thumps in the night. The hallway light on our floor would sometimes flare bright then dim for no reason. The cat belonging to a woman on the second floor would occasionally hiss at one specific spot on the third-floor landing and refuse to pass. You know, the kind of stuff people chalk up to the house settling or old wiring or whatever explanation lets you sleep at night. Life's got enough real scares, right? But all those little oddities were one thing. Apartment 4B, directly across the narrow hall from ours, was something else entirely. That apartment, it was sealed. Sealed shut since before my family moved in. We're talking over 20 years, locked with a heavy-duty, rust-caked padlock on a thick hasp, bolted into the door and frame. The wooden door itself was weathered, paint peeling, showing the scars of time and damp, but it was firmly closed, and nobody ever went near it. When we first moved in, my dad, God rest his soul, asked the old man who owned the building then, about 4B. Why was it locked up tight, not rented out like all the others? The landlord at the time was elderly even then, but still sharp. His face clouded over, and his voice, usually gentle, became stern. That apartment is my business, son, and I don't keep it locked to rent it out. You mind yours. That was enough for no one in the building to ever bring it up with him again. The old landlord himself was a bit of a recluse, lived in the ground floor unit, rarely spoke, barely seen. When he got too frail, his son started coming by to look after him, and, eventually, the building. But even the son clammed up if you asked about 4B. That apartment was a source of silent, creeping dread for all of us on the 4th floor, especially us, right opposite. Why? The sounds. The sounds that came from it. Not loud, startling noises. No, these were quiet, faint, but persistent and deeply unsettling. Sometimes you'd hear a soft scratching, like a trapped animal, from the other side of the door. Other times, a low, broken murmuring, like someone whispering just below the threshold of understanding. And then there was the sound that unnerved me the most, a faint, electrical hum, or a deep, resonant thrumming, like a massive, distant engine. A sound that had no business being in a sealed apartment we were pretty sure had its utilities disconnected decades ago. These sounds weren't constant. They had a strange rhythm, usually late at night, or in those dead quiet hours just before dawn when the city finally holds its breath. At first, we told ourselves it was just sound carrying from other apartments, through the old walls. But over time, focusing, we became certain the source was 4B. Beyond the sounds, other things were linked to that apartment. The patch of hallway floor directly in front of its door, for instance, was always colder than the rest of the landing. Even in the height of summer, when the building felt like an oven, if you stood there, you'd feel a distinct, unsettling chill, like a pocket of winter air. The stray cats that sometimes snuck into the building to sleep on the stairs, they'd never go near that spot. They'd approach, then stop, arch their backs, and either turn around or skirt wide around it, hurrying past as if spooked. My mom would always mutter a prayer and sprinkle salt in front of our own door, sometimes reciting scripture a little louder when the sounds from 4B were more noticeable. My dad tried to reassure us, saying, "It's just your imagination, or probably rats or old pipes," even though he knew, and we knew, that was nonsense. No rats could make those specific sounds, and a sealed apartment wouldn't have active pipes behaving like that. As I got older, into my teens and then my 20s, 4B became more of an obsession. The curiosity was eating me alive. What was in there? Why was the original landlord, and then his son, so adamant about keeping it sealed? And those damn sounds? I started paying closer attention, trying to decipher them. Was the whispering in any recognizable language? Was the scratching rhythmic? Did the hum fluctuate? Sometimes, late at night, after my parents were asleep, I'd crack open our door and stand in the darkened hallway, just listening. Once, I pressed my ear against the cold, ancient wood of 4BS door. The chill I mentioned seeped right through my clothes. And I heard. Something like a clock ticking, but incredibly slow and erratic. Tick, then a long silence, then 2 quick ticks, then an even longer silence, followed by a sound like a deep, shuddering intake of breath, then the ticking resumed. My heart hammered against my ribs. I scrambled back to our apartment, slamming our door, convinced I had been watching me through some unseen crack in 4B. I started asking the older tenants, the ones who'd been there even longer than us. One elderly woman on the 2nd floor, a tiny lady who'd lived in the building her whole life, lowered her voice and glanced around conspiratorially. "My boy," she said, her accent thick, "that apartment, it was closed up even before the old man bought this place. They say people lived there, then vanished. Just gone. And they say, God forgive me, they say it was touched by something, not good. When he bought it, he left it as it was. Said no one should ever open it, so the badness inside doesn't spread." Her words chilled me more than any draft from under that door. That old? And what did she mean? badness that spreads. Our next-door neighbor on our floor, a kind but jumpy woman, told me she sometimes smelled a strange odor seeping from under 4B's door. Not just must or damp, but something else, like ancient dust mixed with the scent of burnt wood or a strange, cloying incense. An odor that made her feel sick. She said her youngest son was playing in the hall once and just froze in front of 4B, staring. When she asked what he was looking at, he said he saw a faint light coming from under the door. She, of course, freaked out, dragged him inside, and forbade him from playing near 4B ever again. All this just fueled my morbid curiosity and my growing dread. I became fixated. I'd wait for the sounds, trying to understand them. I'd watch the door as if expecting it to spontaneously reveal its secrets. I started dreaming about it. Horrible, oppressive dreams. I once dreamt I was standing before 4B, and the door creaked open on its own, revealing pitch blackness within. But I could feel something approaching from that darkness, something vast and shapeless. I woke up ice cold, drenched in sweat. The old landlord eventually passed. His son inherited the building. The son was a bit more approachable than his father, more willing to engage. One day, I gathered my courage. Along with two other guys from the building who were just as uneasy as I was, we decided to talk to him, to finally get some answers. We went down to his father's old apartment, now his office. He opened the door, looking surprised. We sat in the small, cluttered living room that still smelled faintly of old books and pipe tobacco. We carefully broached the subject of 4B, the sounds, our concerns. At first, he tried to brush it off, just like his father, old building, overactive imaginations. But when we persisted, detailing the specific sounds, the cold, the smell, his face changed. The unease was clear. He lowered his voice, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. Look, guys, my father made me swear never to talk about 4B, never to go near it. He inherited the building with that apartment already sealed. The previous owner warned him, told him never to open it, never to rent it. Said it wasn't like other apartments. That it was connected to something else, something very old and very wrong. My father was terrified of it. He said keeping it locked was what protected all of us. I leaned forward. Connected to what? What do you mean, connected to something else? He shook his head. I don't know specifics. All I know is he feared it profoundly. He said the sounds, they were from things not of this world. And he said there were certain nights of the year when the sounds got worse, the cold in front of the door became biting, and on those nights, absolutely no one should go near it. His words were like gasoline on a fire. My curiosity piqued, but a new, deeper layer of fear was settling in. What was this something else? What about these certain nights? Months passed. Things stayed the same. Faint sounds, the cold spot, a low hum of anxiety among the tenants. Until the event that changed everything. The landlord's son, despite his father's warnings, was struggling. The building was old, repairs were constant, and he wasn't a wealthy man. He started talking about 4B. Maybe, just maybe, he could open it, clean it out, rent it. The money would be a lifesaver. We heard whispers of this and grew genuinely alarmed. We tried to reason with him, reminding him of his father's words, the warnings. But desperation, or maybe just the lure of potential income, was a powerful motivator. He said he'd get someone to check it out properly, maybe even get a priest or someone to bless it, before he did anything drastic. He had to find a solution for this dead space. And so, a few days later, he did. He brought a handyman, a burly guy with a crowbar and a power drill. It was a Friday afternoon. Most people were home from work or out. I was at my window, watching the hallway through a crack in the curtains, my stomach in knots. The handyman seemed unfazed, probably thought it was just an old, stuck door. The landlord looked nervous. They started on the padlock with the drill. It was rusted solid, clinging to the doorframe with grim determination. The shriek of the drill bit into metal echoed through the stairwell, loud and jarring. After several minutes of grinding and a final, loud crack, the padlock broke and clattered to the floor. The door was now held only by whatever internal locks it might have had, or just by age and inertia. The landlord looked at the handyman, who just shrugged. The landlord took a breath and pushed the door. It swung inward slowly, with a groan of ancient, protesting wood. It opened just a sliver, maybe 6 inches. And from that opening, At first, nothing. Just darkness. But then, suddenly, all ambient sound ceased. The distant city hum, the murmur of traffic, the kids playing in the street below, even the hum of the refrigerator in my own apartment, everything went silent. A profound, unnatural silence, like the world had been put on mute. And it wasn't just the silence. The air itself changed. It became heavy and abiding. Unnatural cold billowed out from that narrow gap. Not the localized chill we were used to, but a penetrating, deathly cold that seemed to suck the warmth from your bones. The light in the hallway, the weak afternoon sun filtering through the stairwell window, began to dim, as if a storm cloud had instantly blotted out the sky. This all happened in seconds. The landlord and the handyman froze, staring at that dark sliver. I stood paralyzed behind my curtains, feeling the same crushing silence, the same invasive cold, watching the light fade. And from within that 6-inch gap, something began to emerge. Not smoke, not fog. It was like fine, black ash, impossibly soft, drifting out in slow, deliberate eddies, as if dancing in an air that had no current. A cold ash, matte black, utterly devoid of any sheen. It began to coat the floor in front of 4B. Then, a sound. The only sound to break that suffocating silence. Not loud, but impossibly deep and sorrowful. A sound like a long, drawn-out cosmic sigh or the final exhalation of a dying universe. A sound filled with all the despair, all the finality, all the loss in existence. A sound that felt like it was pulling the soul from my body. The handyman let out a choked scream and stumbled back, dropping his crowbar with a clang that was horribly loud in the returning, yet still muffled, soundscape. He turned and fled, scrambling down the stairs, his footsteps echoing wildly. The landlord stood rooted to the spot, his face a mask of horror, eyes wide, staring into the gap as the black ash began to settle on his clothes and hair. I couldn't watch anymore. I slammed my door, bolted it, and retreated to the furthest corner of my bedroom, hands clamped over my ears, trying to block out that soul-crushing sigh. I squeezed shut against the image of that encroaching darkness. But the silence, the wrong silence, was still there, a pressure against my eardrums. The cold was seeping under my door. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes, maybe an hour. Gradually, I sensed the oppressive weight lifting. The normal sounds of the building and the city began to filter back in, faint at first, then growing to their usual levels. The terrifying sigh was gone. Gathering every shred of courage, I crept out of my room. I went to my front door and peered through the peephole. The landlord was still in the hallway, alone, leaning against the opposite wall, his face pale as death. He was staring at the door of 4B, still ajar by that same 6 inches, the black ash thick on the floor before it. I unlocked my door and stepped out. He was trembling. What was that? What's in there? I whispered. He looked at me with vacant eyes, his voice a ragged whisper. Not an apartment. There's nothing. Just void, cold, in the end. Everything ends in there. He said nothing more. I helped him stumble back to his own apartment downstairs and sat him in a chair. I went back up, drawn by that terrible, cursed curiosity. The 6-inch gap remained. The cold was still intense, and as I approached, the ambient sounds of the hallway seemed to recede again, as if being absorbed. I stood before the opening and peered inside. At first, only darkness. A blackness deeper and more absolute than any night I'd ever known. But as my eyes struggled to adjust, I realized it wasn't just darkness. It was emptiness. An infinite void. No walls, no ceiling, no floor. Just an endless expanse of cold, silent black. And in that blackness, distant, faint pinpricks of light. Like stars. But these stars were dying. I watched, horrified, as they slowly, inexorably faded, one by one, like guttering candles. I was witnessing the heat death of a universe, the final extinguishment of all light and energy. I saw, or felt, the very last speck of light wink out. And then, nothing. Absolute black. Absolute cold. Absolute silence. The cessation of all being. Oblivion. That silent, static view was more terrifying than any monster, any tangible threat. This wasn't the horror of something attacking you. It was the horror of ultimate, inevitable annihilation, the terror of eternal, empty, cold nothingness. I felt a sense of insignificance, of cosmic futility, so profound it threatened to shatter my sanity. My existence, humanity, the earth, the sun, the galaxies, all just a fleeting flicker, destined for this. I don't know how long I stared. Seconds, perhaps, but it felt like an eternity of utter despair. Then, I couldn't take it. I recoiled, stumbling back, hitting the opposite wall, feeling as if my soul was being siphoned away. I looked at that narrow opening, like the maw of some cosmic beast, waiting to swallow what little light and life remained in our world. In that moment, I knew. For B wasn't just haunted. It wasn't just a place of ancient evil. It was a window, a viewport onto the end of all things. Perhaps time flowed differently in there, or perhaps it was a fixed point, forever displaying that final, silent scene. I didn't know, and I didn't want to. All I knew was I had to get away. I ran back into my apartment, grabbed a bag, threw in whatever essentials I could find, and fled. Out of the apartment, out of the building, out of the neighborhood, without a backward glance. I walked until my legs gave out, then caught a bus, any bus, heading anywhere else. I'm in a motel room now, somewhere anonymous, hands shaking as I type this. That vision is seared into my brain. The blackness, the cold, the dying stars, the feeling of absolute, terminal finality. I'm terrified of the dark now, of silence. I'm afraid to close my eyes because I see it all again. I don't know what the landlord did. Did he manage to close the door? Did he sell the building? Is he even still there? I don't know, and I don't want to. The handyman who ran, the other tenants. I can't think about them. All that matters now is how I can possibly go on living after seeing that. How can I return to any semblance of normal life, knowing what the end truly looks like? Knowing that an old wooden door in a crumbling tenement, in a forgotten part of a city, opens onto absolute oblivion? I'm writing this as a warning, I guess. Or maybe just to get it out, to feel like I'm not the only one who knows, to feel slightly less insane. If you live in an old place, if there's a locked room nobody ever talks about, if you hear strange sounds or feel unexplained cold, please, just leave it alone. Walk away. Curiosity won't just kill you. It can kill your soul by showing you the bleak, cold, silent truth waiting for us all. God help us. I really don't know what else to say. And now, as the night deepens and our stories fade into silence, may your dreams be gentle and your rest undisturbed. If any tale tonight stirred something in you, fear, wonder, or peace, share it in the comments below. I'd love to know. Leave a like if you'd like to wander these quiet paths again, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories beneath the stars. Until next time, sleep well, and stay curious in the dark.